So
Got too much stuff here on our desks.
you get a lot of feedback on the Connie's Bridge.
Have I got a lot of feedback?
No, that's okay.
Since the dedication?
What, I already
Or
replaced
the
it.
name?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
A lot of people, that's why.
Is there some crazy names out there? Or
Yeah. Huh?
Yeah.
crazy names out there? Or
No, not crazy.
Yeah, I got the last one.
we'll call meeting to order. Shelley, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. District 1, Councilman Rios will be attending via Zoom. He's not online yet, but we expect him anytime. District 2, Councilman Pastor.
Present?
District 3, Councilman Leatham.
Present.
District 4, Vice Mayor Stapleton is excused. District 5, Councilman Gonzalez.
Here.
District 6, Councilman Shipley is excused. Mayor Gameros.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Shelley. Chief, can you lead us in the invocation, please?
She sent me a presentation.
She did? Okay, good. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful unto thee for the blessings that we have. We're grateful for this community and for the opportunities it provides. We're grateful for those who serve the community and work to keep it moving and improving. We ask a blessing on these proceedings at this time and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Mike, can you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with summary of current events. Mike, we'll start with you down there.
Mr. Mayor, it's just been kind of a slow-moving week for me. Being retired, I figure if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. If I don't, I don't. So I've just been around town, walking around, looking at sidewalks, looking at bridges, and but the town is getting a lot cleaner. I've noticed that the crews have been out there sweeping the streets and everything. It looks really, really good out there. My only concern is that people crossing that new bridge over there need to slow down or somebody's gonna get hurt real bad.
Yep.
That's all.
Thank you, Mike. Jesse, online?
Mayor, I don't have anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mariano?
Mr. Mayor, I was in, for Mother's Day over in Safford and was able to eyeball that fire that's occurring over there. They've managed to keep it away from private property, but it got awful close. And with the wind blowing, it's still running. So want to keep them in your prayers. Also asking the public tonight to keep the communities of Eager and Greer in your prayers. They've had a red flag warning up there, and the winds were blowing 50 miles an hour. Fire started in Greer and is blowing towards Eager, which is 10 miles away, but they're evacuating some parts of the west side of Eager. So they're in a world of hurt this evening. Keep them in your prayers, because tomorrow's going to be about the same kind of weather conditions. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariano. Freddie online yet, or?
Not yet, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I have a few announcements. On the 14th, which is tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow, is the Pinal Valley Soil Program. If you haven't heard of it, it's a Freeport-McMoran program. And what they're doing is it's a volunteer program that if you live in the area that's designated, there's certain areas in Claypool, I think west of, or east of Fry's, and some areas in Miami, and you can have your soil tested for any contaminants because of the mining industry or the smelter. Back in the days, we all remember when the smoke was so bad you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. But so it's voluntary. If you agree to do it, they will go test your ground, all your yard and everything. And if they find something, they'll mitigate it and they'll put your yard back to the way it was. So tomorrow night at Miami High School Gymnasium from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, they're gonna have an update on it. So they have a lot of information for anybody that's willing to volunteer to have their yards tested in those areas that are designated. On Thursday, at the Gila County Historic Museum, they're gonna have a ribbon cutting for a memorial monument that has been in the works for, I'm assuming, over a year. I heard about it a year ago. There's a group that raised money to put a monument there, and it's gonna indicate fallen police and firefighters in Gila County, is what I understand. Not a lot of information has been disseminated. I got an invitation. I know that it's out there and it's open to the public. So if you can be there at 11 o'clock on Thursday, they'll have a ribbon cutting. My next Coffee with the Mayor is on the 21st, next Wednesday at 1 o'clock, and that's at Copper Cities Coffee. If anybody wants to come and has any questions about what's going on with our city and everything, we can give you an update. I talked to Richard Rosales, APS, and I got a flyer on it. APS, we know that they want to initiate the PSPS program, which is Public Safety Power Shutoff. That could happen in our community. They're going to have a town hall on June 5th at Bullion Plaza Gymnasium, and that's going to be from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. There should be brochures out on social media and everything. It'll be out, but they'll explain what the PSPS program. You should have got, if you live in this area, one of these also, some kind of card showing all the information about it. It's important that you understand it to sign up for the program so you'll get alerts, because what they say, if they're gonna shut the power off, they'll give us a 4-day notice. Although we saw what happened in Greer, I don't know if they got a 4-day notice. No. Because it happened all of a sudden, because they did shut the power. APS shut the power in the Greer area, and I think in the Eager area is down now. So that could happen here. We're only seeing about 30-mile-an-hour winds. They're seeing double the winds up there, but it could happen here. So we really want to emphasize that we need to make sure that we clean our properties, around our homes, around our neighborhoods, because it could happen anywhere. If you have an elderly or handicapped a neighbor, reach out and help them out. Get their place cleaned up. We had a fire over a decade ago in Central Heights with the high winds, and it took out, 4 or 5 houses at one time, just because of the winds and the way their properties were. There was a lot of dry brush, so it spread easily. So just keep that in mind. We need to all work together. It is our problem. We are in extreme drought. We need to make sure that we make our homes safe from fire. And that's all I have.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I think about 2 Mondays ago, it was raining and cold and everybody was bundled up. Not so much anymore. But the good news is that our official opening of the pool will be this Memorial Day weekend for the third season. But we have a soft opening going on this weekend, May 17th. And so, what's that? Okay. And so if anybody's out and about and feels young and healthy and wants to dip in the water, I think they're getting it warmed up, but the sun's gonna do a lot faster job than our heater is. But the swim team's been in it and having fun, say it's not that bad. The only other thing coming up on this, we do have, we're gonna talk a lot about, the budget and healthcare benefits, but just a reminder that this Thursday, is it, Pam, 9 to 11? 9 to 11?
9 and 11.
A session at 9 and a session at 11 o'clock will be for employees, open enrollment, for the healthcare. And so that's important that everybody gets a chance, gets to hear what we're offering, get the packet information, and then have time to process that and make their choices if they want to change any selections. So that would be this Thursday, the 15th, 9 o'clock out at Besh and 11 o'clock at Besh. So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's all I have.
Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned about the changing in right away the weather. You know, we spent last week at Big Lake and it was snowing and 17 degrees and it's right next to Greer. And now you look what's happening now, the change in 1 week, you know, snow on the ground and freezing temperatures. But you look up there and when we drove up there, it's all dry. All the ground fuel is all yellow and dead. So it's going to spread quickly, even in the high country. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
We have our,
Just for the record, Councilman Rios has joined the meeting. He is in.
okay, thank you. Freddie, you have anything for a summary of current events?
No, Mr. Mayor, not right now. I'm sorry. My dog is yelping, as you can hear, but I appreciate you letting me jump on here. I've been had a very busy since Friday week. I just got home. And just to let everybody know, as you know, I coach Globe High School golf and basketball, and we had one individual that made the state tournament. So I just got home from that. It's been going on for the last 2 days. So kudos to Globe Golf for making the state tournament.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you.
So we have our first community call to the public. Do we have anybody online or on the phone? I have no cards.
Let's see real quick.
None?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anything, nothing on the phone?
No.
Let me check mine real quick, Mr. Mayor. Council. All right, I'm not seeing anything, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So we'll move on to special presentation. Item 3A is Mayor Camaros will present the city clerk's office with a proclamation proclaiming May 4th through May 10th, 2025 as the 56th Annual Professional Municipal Clerk Week. So I'll read that and then we'll present this to our clerk, our city clerk, Shelley. So 56th Annual Professional Municipal Clerk Week, whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world. And whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the Professional Municipal Clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the professional municipal clerk through participation in education, programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the professional municipal clerk. Now, therefore, I, Al Camaros, Mayor of the City of Globe, on behalf of Globe City Council, do recognize the week of May 4th through May 10th, 2025 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week. So we'll present this to you, Shelley, if I'd like my fellow councilman to go take a picture with you. I can't say and how much we appreciate everything that you do. I mean, you're the rock of really this, the council and keeping us informed and keeping us together. We appreciate it.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, it doesn't talk about all the other duties, the keeping, the part of the leadership team, the history department, and keeping the city manager in line, so.
That's those key points.
Yeah, it's not an easy one. It's got a balloon in it. Say agenda deadline.
Waiting and waiting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item B,
Can I speak a few words?
yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Shelley, I just want to congratulate you on this, honor that you've received today, and it's a national, accomplishment for all clerks, but, in Globe City municipality, I just want to congratulate you and thank you for all the hard work that you do. You're so busy, you keep all mayor and council in line and, in the know, and I just want to say thank you for all your dedication to, your mayor and council and the city.
Thank you, Councilman Rios. It's a pleasure to serve this council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Freddie. So item B is, we'll present Globe Economic Development Department with a proclamation for National Economic Development Week. So I'll read that, and I think we have Melissa, you accepted this? 2025 Economic Development Week proclamation, whereas more than 100,000 economic development or related professionals worldwide are committed to creating, retaining, and expanding top-tier opportunities that facilitate long-term equitable community growth. And whereas the economic development profession that cultivates thriving neighborhoods, champions sustainability and resiliency, boosts economic prosperity, enhances the quality of life, and builds robust tax bases. And whereas economic development professionals operate throughout diverse economic environments, including rural, suburban, and urban settings, local, state, provincial, and national governments, public-private partnerships, chamber of commerce, institutions of the higher education, among many similar organizations and associations. And whereas economic development professionals serve as stewards, bridging connections between community stakeholders such as residents, business leaders, elected officials, industry executives, and educational administrations to collaborate to promote job creation, community investment, infrastructure, advancement, and an optimistic future. And whereas economic developers contribute to the betterment and the progress of the city of Globe within the state of Arizona of the United States, whereas since 1926, the International Economic Development Council has been a leader and driving force in advancing economic development initiatives with a steadfast commitment to fostering growth and prosperity in communities of all sizes worldwide through equity, inclusion, sustainability, resilience, and innovation. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Globe recognizes Economic Development Week and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports expanding opportunities, bettering lives, and moving society forward. So if you want to come.
Take a picture. More than that.
I'll get the picture.
Okay.
Alright, short people in front, tall people in the back.
Melissa, you get in the middle.
There you go. Everybody shoulders, oh, there you go. Looking good. Okay. All right. On the count of three, we're gonna say growth. 1, 2, 3, growth. There you go. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, Councilman.
Yeah, I know, he's gonna get you in line.
Wait here, we'll get.
Item C, proclamation to the Globe Police Department for National Police Week 2025. City of Globe, Arizona proclamation in recognition of the National Police Week 2025. Whereas National Police Week, observed this year from May 11th through May 17, 2025, is a time to honor the service and sacrifice of law enforcement officers across the United States. And whereas the Globe Police Department has demonstrated steadfast dedication to protecting and serving the residents of Globe, Arizona, upholding justice and ensuring the safety of our neighborhoods. And whereas the officers of the Globe Police Department face danger with courage and professionalism, often placing themselves in harm's way to uphold the law and protect our community. And whereas we pause to remember and honor the officers, both locally and nationally, who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty, and we extend our heartfelt gratitude to their families for their immeasurable loss. And whereas it is fitting and proper that the City of Globe recognizes and celebrates the outstanding service, commitment, and integrity of the men and women of the Globe Police Department, who work tirelessly to keep the city safe and secure. Now, therefore, I, El Gameros, Mayor, City Globe, Arizona, on behalf of the Globe City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of May 11th through May 17th, 2025, as National Police Week in the City of Globe.
Go, I'll follow you down.
We gotta wait till everybody's in line. Okay. Mariana, get in a little bit closer. There you go. Oh, there. Beautiful. All right.
One more.
Sounded jealous.
I'm just to do you.
One more proclamation. Item D is a proclamation proclaiming May 2025 as National Small Business Month in Globe. Proclamation, May 1st through May 31st, 2025, declared as National Small Business Month. Whereas America's progress has been driven by pioneers who think big, take risks, and work hard. And whereas from the storefront shops that anchor Broad Street to the high-tech startups that keep America on the cutting edge, small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the cornerstones of our nation's promise. And whereas small business owners and Main Street businesses have energy and a passion for what they do. And whereas when we support small business, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas, because this country's 28 million small businesses create nearly 2 out of 3 jobs in our economy, we cannot resolve ourselves to create jobs and spur economic growth in America without discussing ways to support our entrepreneurs. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. Whereas the City of Globe supports and joins in this national effort to help America small business do what they do best, create jobs and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now therefore, the City of Globe, Arizona hereby proclaims May 1st through May 31st, 2025 as National Small Business Month. You accepting that one too?
We can do a picture? You got it, Mayor.
Wait, one more. Oh, okay. Look again.
Good job.
Item E.
Mr. Mayor,
Miss, yep.
pardon me.
Go ahead.
Can we ask if we can move the introduction of Kathleen Vega before the next two presentations?
Okay,
Sure.
so that'll be item G, no,
Sorry, John.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll jump to G.
okay, I don't know.
Sorry, John, thank you.
So we're jumping into which one?
Item G, the introduction.
Item G, we're going to?
Yes,
If we could move that
we're
up.
jumping over to the bridge and the HR, the employee survey.
Okay,
So we're going from D to G.
we're good with that?
Yes.
Okay, so item G is introduction of Kathleen, often called Kat Vega, who was hired by the city 8 years ago at the Beshpagao Museum and then worked for the Globe Police Department for the next 5 years as a body-worn camera analyst. Kathleen was promoted to Recreation Special Events Manager in March. We have Linda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and Councilman online. Thank you so much. We're so excited to finally officially welcome Kat on board. It's been a whirlwind. She began on March 18th, and she's been just a whirlwind of energy since then. As you had mentioned, and Kat shared so much of this during the interview, and it was so great getting to know her in a different way. She's originally from South Phoenix and has lived here for the past 10 years. And 9 of those years she's worked here with the city. They moved here when her husband took a job at Freeport. And as you had mentioned, she went from Besh to the police department when she transitioned during COVID, when we were trying to cover different projects that needed to get done because the Besh couldn't be open. And so Kat just really bloomed within the police department, and we're very thankful that we were able to benefit from her knowledge and her training, and of course the leadership that she was part of at the police department, which she's been for the past 5 years. And that passion, and well, actually I should start with this. She was the body cam specialist, but really where her heart was coordinating special events, and that became the highlight of her role at the PD. That passion for bringing people together and creating memorable community experiences is what led her to pursue this position. She walked in to the interview and she said, "Here we go, I have my Red Cross certification done." We were floored. It was just fantastic. So since she started, she's been through 55 lifeguard interviews, hired 30 of them, had 12 lead lifeguard interviews. We've hired 4. She has 4 cashiers, 4 leads, 4 cashiers. She's, with Tammy, led 3 HR orientations, and then the big pool orientation that was all day this past Saturday. So we have, is it 37 total? 38?
Yeah.
And 23 returning. And it's just so fantastic to see Kat just jump in and lead this team. Outside of work, Kat's an avid traveler. She loves road trips and hiking the iconic trails in every place she visits, exploring local bookstores. And Globe has not become just a home to her, but for her extended family as well. Her sister Lily was invited to live in the community by Councilman Pastor and his wife Linda, who are proud grandparents to Kat's niece. Her personal goals in this new chapter are to lead and expand the Parks and Rec Department and continue building programming and events that serve and inspire our residents. So please join us in congratulating and supporting Kat as she cannonballs into this important role. So welcome aboard.
You guys basically said everything. Thank you. I'm really excited. I was gonna say that we're gonna have a soft opening and invite everybody on Friday and Saturday, but he took that away. So we are really excited, and a lot of people, I mean, we can't even be at work getting certifications or doing anything at the pool without people knocking down the gate. And it doesn't matter if the gate's shut, they open it up, they walk right in, and they want to know when the pool's gonna be open. Officially, it'll be the 23rd, and we're looking forward to continuing going and expanding it. Thank you.
Great, congratulations.
All right.
Okay, back to item E is a presentation of the new Upper Pinal Creek Bridge, Connie's intersection update. John.
Left out Reese Canyon Bridge too.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a quick reference, Vince dropped it. I'm gonna make sure Vince gets the proclamation. Public Works Week is next week, so we didn't get the proclamation memo, otherwise we would've had another one. Just wanted to give you a quick update and kind of some of the bridge progress that we're trying to wrap up, and then also get into the more important concern that we have this evening to discuss is the traffic. So by the end of this week, you've noticed they were actually trucks hauling out the material, the rebar and concrete. They're still doing that. They actually took like a midday off. They had some issues with the truck hauling material. So they started that again today. So hopefully by the end of the week, they'll be done with that phase of the project. The lights that the pedestal lights that you see going across on Hill Street right off the curb, they were on the east side of the road. We're moving them to the west. We're relocating that. It helps for the visual of the night traffic, of course, and pedestrian traffic and the crosswalk. So we're incorporating those, where you saw that drilling, where some people were kind of in the public asking about street lights or stop signs. Fortunately, that's not what's being done, but we are moving the lights that were across the road to kind of lighten up that corner. So that's still being done. That should be done in the next 2 weeks. The landscape is actually scheduled for the first part of June, and that should take about 2 weeks of work that they're going to do, that little island and finish up on the corners. The paving project where you see the railroads changing out their crossing, we'll be working on that. We're still working on some pricing and some scheduling with the contractor. So there'll be some additional asphalt work that needs to be done. I've asked our engineering department to kind of look at that further, where they actually finished the bridge project. There's a rough patch that kind of transitions into the old intersection where the crossing used to be. So we're getting additional prices. See, we can't bring that wrap it around the corner there and level that off. It's a little rough with all the constriction and traffic that we've had in that area. So I'm hoping to finish that off as well. So, in going forward with the most important project, what we're talking about, and I don't know, Paul, did you want to start the conversation, or I can just?
No. Well, we all know that there's been a lot of discussion about the intersection and getting it, everybody getting acclimated to it. It's different. It's a totally different traffic flow. Instead of people, free flowing east-west on Broad Street to Wallerman, now it free flows from Hill into the Connie's and up Jess Hayes. And we looked at it. It was built the way it was originally designed. I think it was a little bit of a shocker to everybody because it's total flip-flop of what has gone. Seems to have calmed down now and everybody's doing good, except for people coming down Hill Street at speed, and they surprise everybody at that intersection when they go through. And so we've had discussions about whether there's a design issue with the bridge or if it's an enforcement issue, and we just have to worry about people coming around that corner. But John,
Okay.
go ahead.
So I'll go ahead, and some of the things we looked at, and actually asking Luis and the engineer, unfortunately could not make it tonight to answer these questions if there's any additional, is one of the concerns is that originally when the bridge was designed, it goes all the way back to COVID when they were designed. So they were limited on the resource where they're getting people out to do the traffic design and stuff. But what they did is use the historic numbers of the traffic that was going, basically being affected in that corner. Like I explained to Paul, and I would explain to all of you, is that in the process of doing that design, of course, like Paul says, it's a total change. A lot of times people say, well, the bridge just got moved over, but literally there was two, to me, major intersections going on where a lot of people transition and just go to Broad. Now you have a lot of traffic that's just staying on Hill. I've done that myself. I don't make the left anymore. I go across to come to City Hall. I just try and go across and come down the highway. So a lot of that traffic so that's actually increasing that much more flow in that corner. When we talk about recently, we've met with, me and Luis spoke with the traffic engineer, and actually a company would do a traffic study. That's one of the things that we're kind of leading towards to get your opinion of which route we want to take, because I've done other research as far as additional signage. I know in the public where some questions may have asked, Mayor, you actually mentioned this at a prior meeting, is about when we talk about speed bumps. Usually the radius on that turn, and it's a line of sight thing, that speed bumps really is not an option. And speed bumps aren't normally friendly. I live by one, and you hear it all night, especially with the heavy truck traffic. When they're coming in loaded dump trucks, the residents, I guarantee, are probably gonna have significant complaints because of the sound. I mean, there is the additional traffic that's going in that area, so that highlights that. I've done some research also as far as bus stops. There is on Carrico and Hill, there was a bus stop that was right on that corner there. Everybody knows that fence line. That's probably the most narrow point, and that's probably the most visually impaired, that transition. We have added previously a school bus stop ahead. When I went there after discussions, actually it's gone. The signpost is there, but somebody took the sign from us. So I just wanted to discuss with you some of the options that we may have. The traffic study. Paul, did you want to talk about any cost on that right now, or did you?
Well, I think there's three options out there. And John and I had a discussion this morning about this. You know, we had talked about doing a traffic study because, as Luis had explained, you can get a lot better handle on what's going on after it's been built rather than conceptually on the design board. And so we looked at those prices. They're not as, it's more complex because of the need to run cameras and counts and everything like that. So we're talking about, I think the base study about 5,000.
Yes.
And then they can do some other additional stuff that take it up to 9. But as this has worked its way through, we're leery that they're going to come back and say it's not the intersection. You know, the intersection is working fine. It's the enforcement that we just got to get people used to slowing down. Not blaming for the enforcement, but just people coming down that hill not realizing. Now,
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Did we not have a traffic study prior to building this bridge here, when we were talking about putting a roundabout there? Did we not have a traffic study done?
Go ahead.
Councilman, there was a study, that's how I say, in part of the design part, but I don't recall ever having a discussion as far as a roundabout, because of the railroad, that would definitely, heavy truck traffic, like Domlin trucks, we always emphasize Domlin, even delivery trucks this morning, that roundabout would not, from what I understood, would really not be an option. I know some of the questions have been for that corner, but just try picturing a roundabout and trying to get a truck through that. Right now, we kind of have.
I kind of, not to cut you off, but in a previous conversation that we had about this bridge, and my mind's kind of foggy right now, but as I recall, we were discussing where we would put the stop signs, moving that train trestle, moving the train beacons, and we were playing around with the idea of a roundabout, and we decided to put it a 4-way, and then now it's switched to a 2-way. And so I'm just asking why we didn't have that traffic study, and I'm hearing Paul, the city manager, say that, you know, now that it's open, it's easier to get an active traffic study done, that we know, that way we can see it in real time, versus what we had. And then I guess it's a 2-part question, and with moving everything around, are we going to incur that cost, or those costs, since we didn't have all this studies done, that the city's gonna incur now?
Yeah, and Councilman Leatham, there was the initial design was done by a specific traffic engineer that worked for EPS. There was a thought about re-signing it with a four-way. I'm not sure where that came from, but when we got worried about having a stop sign right on top of a railroad crossing, we went back to EPS and they had the traffic engineer look at it again, and he said, no, it should be done the way it was designed, which is a two-way. And so they've completed what their requirements are. If city council and the city is concerned and we want to take a third-party look at that, that would be a cost that we would have to incur to take a second look at it. And I'm here tonight to ask council what you've been hearing and see if you feel it's worth the extra money to do a study or to work on enforcement and then give it some time and see if in the future it hasn't worked its way out. It seems to be working its way out much as Hill Street did. The other problem with doing the study now is we're about 2 weeks away from school being out, and that's going to change traffic flow too. So it may be beneficial if we are going to spend the money for a traffic study, we wait until August when the kids are back in school, because we think a lot of that may be school traffic. But does that?
Mayor, if I could.
Yes.
If I could, I would just preface that I would be in favor of having a traffic study done sooner rather than later. I think that if we have what is going to happen, a crash there, we've been discussing this, I'd rather just have it done and figure it out now versus waiting to later.
And that's what staff is looking for, is where is council's fall on this? We as to, you know, sooner or later, or how we do this. And so the only other, before I think we should open this up for a little bit of debate with council, I did want to ask Chief Walters to come down and talk about, we had a quick phone call about, conversation about what he could do to help slow down that enforcement. Not saying that that's not going to change anything in the traffic study, but we'll have the chief respond and then open it up.
Yeah, we need to open up
Yeah.
dialogue to the entire council, yes.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council. So I've been through that intersection a number of times. In fact, I went back through it again today. I think a lot of what we're seeing is there's just a huge change. I would tell you it took me a long time to adjust, not being from Globe, to how the traffic flowed before, which was completely opposite of anything that I'd been exposed to, but it was pretty creative is what it was. I think it's much safer the way it is now. The biggest concern that I would have is coming off of Hill Street down towards Connie's, just because it's somewhat of a blind corner. But when the 4 or 5 times I've been over there and looked at it, it hasn't seemed to be that bad of an issue. The one-offs that you're gonna have there could be problematic. I'm gonna look at the sign. I wanna take a drive with John tomorrow or later this week and takes a look at the signing down through there. You have several different options that you can do. The biggest problem with the four-way is with the railroad crossing right where it's at, you'd be stopping vehicles on top of the tracks. And I think the concern was the continuous flow crossing the tracks was a better move, particularly coming from Connie's into town, regardless of which way you're turning, to keep the railroad clear. The two-way seems to be working right now, but you have a couple of options. We could change the signage. We could slow them down coming downhill from 25 mile an hour to 20 mile an hour, or even 15 mile an hour. Put some signage up concerning there's large intersection around the corner. Be caution. I'm not a big fan, like John, of speed humps right through there. You could potentially do rumble strips. And the other thing that you could do is you could do a three-way stop and let the Connie's Bridge, or let the traffic coming from Connie's flow, and just have the other 3 parts of the intersection stop. And that would be doable. What we haven't done yet is we haven't done targeted enforcement, and I'm happy to do that. And really, other than the newness, we've had a couple of minor complaints that we've heard second or third hand. We haven't had any direct communication from anybody living out that way or concerns, so we really haven't addressed it. But like anywhere else in the city, if we have a concern about something, we'll run targeted enforcement over there, mostly not to write tickets, but to stop people and to educate them, and to kind of slow them down. Every intersection that we have in this community has a potential of having a major accident, depending on divided attention on the drivers or speed and things like that, and we've seen it. We just haven't been, I haven't personally been hearing directly of any major issues there, but we're happy to take a look at it and go with whatever the council recommends, obviously. Questions?
No, I think, yeah, just a comment, Chief. I think the speed it is posted there at 15 miles an hour, right when you make that turn there, but it's kind of hidden. I think if you were able to put some lightings, like you do with the caution, the light, the solar lights that say 15 mile an hour intersection.
Well, like many of the speed signs that we have through
Exactly.
town, we could put a couple of them up there with some additional signage that kind of flash at you.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman say, hey, that keeps flashing at me. And I had to explain to him, that's because you're going too fast.
Slow down.
If you slow down, it doesn't do that. So, I mean, we could do that or whatever council would like.
Okay. Mike?
A
You got
couple of
comments?
questions, couple of things. You know, I walk by there every morning, just kind of see what the hell's going on down there, because that's one of my routes. Really, the biggest thing is speed coming off of Hill Street.
Yeah.
That I see, okay? The other problem I notice is when you turn right off of Broad to go on the bridge, it's hard to see the cars coming down Just Hayes from the hand railing and stuff. You don't really see the cars until they're already on the curve. I don't know if anybody's looked at that, okay? So that's just something that I've noticed and people have said to me. Other than that, all you gotta do is slow down. I mean, I go through that intersection, I've gone every which way you can go. And if you just go at your normal speed, you're okay. But people gotta take their feet off the gas pedal, man. It's crazy.
And I absolutely agree, but the reality of it is if you do have someone coming down there, for whatever reason, they're inattention, DUI, or bad driver, or whatever, it could create a problem in there. However, it is an incredibly large intersection, and there's some wiggle room in there, so we haven't had any, I'm unaware of any accidents sitting here tonight that we've had there since we've opened that up, but, you know, we'll be happy to do some direct enforcement, and I'll work with John to see if there's something else that we can do with some signage and things. I mentioned the speed signs that we put up like at the property room and different parts of town. And that's all designed just to kind of, because people, they don't understand if they're coming particularly from the valley or something where everything's flat and gridded, they get here, there's hills and curves and stuff, and they'll pick up speed naturally and just kind of, it helps them slow down.
And I will tell you that some of the residents along Just Hayes Road from Connie's to right where the Public Works turnoff is, have complained about the speeding, and this was prior to the bridge.
Yeah.
In that strip, they even asked me to request that we put one of the flashing signs to slow down like you have on the highway.
I'll be happy to spend all of Paul's money on signs, sir.
You know, I did notice that we have some new 25 mile per hour signs, and they're big, but I don't think anybody sees them.
Yeah, I would tell you the flashing signs are fairly inexpensive, and we've placed them on a number of locations here, so I'll get a couple of quotes for you. We still have some?
I already have quotes.
Okay, so we should be good to go, so. And we'd be more than happy to do enforcement for a few weeks on both of those areas, both day and night, and see, with the intent of educating people and get them to slow down.
In fact, when I was walking yesterday, they got a kid that went through real quick, and one of your officers stopped him. I don't think he ticketed him, but he stopped him and let him know. And I thought, wow, they're on it, good.
Yeah, so it's whatever council needs or city manager needs, we'll be happy to.
I have another question.
I think
Mariano, you
that
got it?
just that the speed off of Hill Street
Yeah,
is the greatest problem, and there are solutions to make that happen, so. If you're new to the area, yeah, you would want to speed down that hill. It's a downhill run,
that's a straight shot.
Yeah.
It's
and I get that. But anything we can do to slow them down at that point is, I think, is a good solution.
Mr. Mayor, I think Councilman Rios
Yeah.
has a comment.
Freddie, you got,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think one thing that, we can't forget here or we need to realize is that, you know, we created this thoroughfare, this travel way from, you know, from US 60 for our locals, for our visitors, to get to, the community center and some of those amenities that the city has. We have a sidewalk project that is also linked to this same travel way. So, you know, with that said, you know, this was a design that we all agreed on. And, I get that there's a blind corner there, and I think, that, you know, we need to find ways to, better educate, the locals and the visitors about that turn. You know, I think of, highways where you see those markers that indicate a sharp turn or a sharp corner. Those are subliminal messages to any driver and any person that's driving them. Hey, you really need to be careful here and slow down and be ready for a sharp turn. I agree that maybe some additional signage to help do that and educate the drivers. This is a whole new look for this intersection that is decades old. And I can tell you, I mean, I've been here over 20 years, but when I first came into town and I saw that Connie's Bridge intersection, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could go right. I didn't know if I had to stop. It was so confusing. This is much less confusing. And it is patterned, I believe, with a lot more detailed, restrictive, driving habits. So I think, you know, if the chief is willing to do a little more patrolling, but I really think that maybe we need to start looking at maybe some additional signage, lighting for the night, and just, you know, things that will glow at night, and also advertise during the day that, this is not a raceway. It's a path to another part of the city, and its city's amenities. So, I just want to emphasize that, you know, we all bought in on this design. And we really need to, you know, if there's a true concern from individuals, whether they're local or visitors, we need to pay attention and add those additional buffers, or signage. Thank you, Mayor.
thank you, Freddie. And I think my comment is too that, you know, I don't live out there, but I've driven different times to just try different, coming in different directions. One of the things I saw turning right onto the bridge on Jess Hayes, I stopped at the intersection like you're supposed to. I looked both ways, there was no car, so I made my turn, but here comes this Jeep hauling around the corner coming off Hill Street.
Oh, yeah?
And he was right on top of me by the time I was in the middle of the bridge. The other one is coming from Jess Hayes, coming out and turning left, you know. The guy coming straight has a right of way, but those guys are hauling, they come around just, all of a sudden they're on top of us. I think enhancement of somehow slowing them down on Hill Street will benefit, I think, that area, that location. I agree with Freddie, the old method, the old Connie's Bridge was totally confusing, but people were used to it. I think they got used to it. But I think that my opinion is that we spend our money more wisely by enhancing lighting and signage and not on another study that, you know, I think we could enhance it with far less money and hopefully solve that issue there.
I have a question for John. When you're coming down Broad to the bridge,
Yes.
there's a lot of extra signage there. Is that all gonna disappear eventually?
Some of it will, because right now it's because they have like the construction, and that's kind of like where we start looking at, sometimes I mentioned it to Paul, sometimes you can oversign an area
Yeah.
where everybody becomes complacent of the signs.
Yeah.
Just like to Mayor's point, where you're making that left towards Connie's, Luis recommended we put a yield to traffic sign and there's there, but who notices that sign? So we're gonna change the size of the sign, because you're gonna make it bigger, it usually goes into a higher speed when you change the size of your signs, but it's not as obvious, it doesn't come out as much.
And they're gonna take out the old railroad,
Yes, yes, all that's coming out,
Structure
when they
there. Yeah,
start
'cause-
looking, like I said, they're doing the crossing now, they're changing that, they're putting that rock in there temporarily so they can get their traffic out of there. They're gonna take out the old levers, and a lot of the other signage will come out, once it's more, right now, there's more signage because they wanna make sure that traffic still doesn't try making that right turn,
Sure.
because everybody's used to
yeah,
it.
you've got the barricades up, which is good.
Yes, so once that starts going out, then like I said, that, what happens is the curb is gonna define that corner, and even at that point, we could probably put some delineation as far as the chevrons that are gonna have traffic to just move along that way. One of the things I know that what we're kind of looking at, we have spoke with the vendor on the traffic study aspect of it and expressed the need, if we go that route, we need it done as soon as possible within the next week. So we had that discussion. On the other side of it, actually already had vendor that works with us, is under state contract pricing, that helps us out in procurement. And I actually have all the pricing for the speed radar signs that we're talking about, because I have possibly thought of one on the Wallaman side as you're approaching the bridge, and then one coming down on Hill Street side. And then also, and putting emphasis, because they have the speed limit and it actually has a flashing sign. There'd be a little bit smaller than the ones we have on the highway because of the speed range, but county's actually utilizing some of those in their areas going towards the college. And I think they're effective, because that's the first thing when I had the discussion with staff, they're like, let's go look at the ones that the county's using. I know they had installed in Tom, can probably even add on to that. But there's also other signage. The speed limit coming down Hill Street, it's actually posted at 25. What you see is when you see the 15 mile an hour, that's for Halby Court. That's the little one-way street that comes down, but the sign is twisted just enough that it kind of does us a favor right now that it's almost looks like it's posted at 15. Probably shouldn't give that secret out, but if somebody's slowing down to 15, that's great. But there's that other preliminary signage. And the quotes that I've received recently in light of thinking about the bus stops also, there's a bus stop normally that is on the Connie side, a store there where the traffic will stop there. I actually price stop signs that were actually having the flashing lights for a bus stop indicator too. So that's another route we can actually add into either the Hill Street or on the Wallaman side, or the Jess Hayes side, I'm sorry.
Okay, the other thing, my wife walks ahead earlier in the morning than I do, and she walks down towards Connie's, and she says that the big 53-foot trailers that deliver there early in the morning, they actually turn off the bridge left and then back in to Connie's. So, I don't know, is it a problem that they can't make that turn, or?
They actually can make the turn. I think the drivers I just saw that this morning. When I was coming across the bridge, the driver was backing in. I slowed down and he backed all the way in. And actually, it's odd that you mentioned that, because I noticed those things as well, where they traditionally were doing that. Some drivers, it really depends on the drivers that are coming in the area, because they're not always the same drivers. With the old bridge, I would see them do that as well, because a lot of times I hit the bridge and I throw on my lights just to know that they know I'm blocking the road off enough that they can back in. But the same thing was actually happening with the other bridge. But they can make that right, they can turn around. It really depends on the driver. I think to them, it's actually easier to pull forward and then back into it. The only problem is that you're choking that corner, and the residents from Reese Canyon are gonna have to go on opposite lane of traffic just to get out. So that was my thought when I saw that. I was like, it's not safe either.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and then the other thing was, I can't even remember, there's so many different things that I've been questioned about. But the radar or the light along Jess Hayes Road, slowing people down, I think that would work. Oh, I know, the little white bars on Hill Street that weren't there before, what's the purpose of those? Because half of them are already gone. I don't know if you've been by there lately, but there's about
Yeah, the ones on the crosswalk you're talking about?
No, along the side of the homes, as you're coming off the bridge.
Oh,
and
yeah,
going-
that's just kind of one of those enhancements on the safety side or the delineator side. We're going, because it's not really a sidewalk. If you remember years back, that's
Yeah,
covered,
that's-
that's concrete over a culvert.
Yeah.
So there was a drainage thing. So they just put those as safety enhancements. We
Okay.
kind of didn't anticipate those staying too long because of the traffic and then
Yeah.
residents.
kids are
You know, it's not favorable to, I understand, where it kind of takes away some of the off-street parking.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ones on that far corner have disappeared, yes.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to let you know just in case it was an issue. And the other thing is the double stripe coming from Hill Street around to the bridge.
Yes,
As it goes by Carico, it's double striped, and we have an individual who lives right on the end of Hill Street there. He's afraid to go across the double stripe. Of course, everybody else crosses the double stripe and makes a turn to Carico.
yeah, so that actually, Paul and Luis spoke about that earlier today, that actually stripe needs to be either grinded down, obliterated, or darkened up, because it should not be a dual stripe on that section through the intersection. Normally you have a break in your striping, so that indicates the traffic that's coming up could not pass, but the traffic coming down can make the transition or make the left turn. We actually have some of those things around town, so Paul had asked about that this morning. So we're looking to, we need to correct that, yes.
Any other comments from council or questions?
Mayor, if they'll slow down, they won't have any trouble at all. It's easy to figure it out.
I agree totally.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Leatham is supportive of doing a traffic study now. You're supportive of signage now rather than a traffic study?
That's my opinion. Like I said, I'm only one vote here, so I don't know.
Should we check with the rest?
Yeah, I would check with what other council wants.
I would prefer a traffic study just from a risk management point of view. That way we can tell a judge when we're hauled into court, well, he said, and I always worry about that, so I would prefer a traffic study.
Okay.
I think that if we can just do some precautionary safety improvements, it'll help, because people are slowing down and I even used to stop at the stop sign that got moved. Once we got there, I'm learning, to go through. So I don't necessarily think we need to spend that kind of money on a traffic study, but I'm only one.
Councilman Rios? It's got bad internet connection.
Freddie, you online?
Chasing the dog.
Let me text him.
Yeah, he might be. I think I can hear him, but he's way low.
Freddie, you're muted.
Is he coming back there?
What's wrong? I don't know. Check the chat window, see if he's saying. Why can't we hear him?
He's on there.
We used to be able to hear him.
Can we get him to call? Because we really need his input.
I'm sorry, I had a work call. So I missed that, I missed the last 2 minutes.
So-
Had a work emergency. What was the question?
So, Councilman Rios, Mayor, do you want to explain?
Yeah, Freddie, what we're after is, what is your suggestion? Do you feel that we need to spend money on a study at this point? Or should we enhance our enforcement and enhance our lighting or signage to try and slow people down in that intersections?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for the question. I think at this point, there's no documentation that we're having, multiple incidences there, vehicle crashes, things like that. I don't think that warrants a study at this point. I think if we had a lot of severe, incidences that were going on, at this point, and I'm not a professional at traffic control, although I do a lot of traffic control in my professional work. At this point, I would lean more enhancing, signage, during the day, reflectors during the night, maybe even some other lighting, you know, forewarning travelers about that, even traffic, traffic limits. I agree with Chief Walters that, you know, at this point, trying those mitigation measures than a full-out study, is probably more in line. And I say that because we've already determined this is gonna be the flow path of the residents of Globe and the visitors of Globe. So I just think that, you know, as we see these little quirks that come up, you know, we work at mitigating it, but at this point, I'm not in favor of a full-on study.
Okay, thank you, Freddie. Jesse, you got any more comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to preface that the reason that I want to study, I mean, I get that you're in favor of not spending the money on a study, that you want to spend the money on signage, but what if the signage doesn't work, and then we're back at square one again, and spending more money on another study just to move the signs that we could have been told at the beginning, had a study done, this is where the signs would make more sense, this is where it would be visible, where our drivers coming down, and then going out with a plan, rather than just sporadically moving signs and increasing our police presence in that area. I get the notion that you want to save $1, but in the long run, if we're ending up spending more money, then, I mean, we'll just have to see how it goes, I guess. So that's my 2 cents. Anyways, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add also, you know, there are companies that, have plans, already documented plans on how traffic control mitigations can be measured and met. You know, you see it all along construction sites. These aren't just plans that people say, well, let's just put a sign here, or let's just put a marker here. These are pretty detailed signs, and John can speak to that because he does a lot of that in public works, but, you know, the acronym is MUCTD. And these are nationally accepted, plans for certain, road hazards. And John, you might be able to speak to that, but, you know, in minding your work, these are plans that are not just in the books, but these are plans that permitting agencies will accept or deny. So, I mean, there's some, that in itself, and Councilman Lincoln, I'm not trying to, you know.
No, I get your point, Councilman Rios, but to that point, if these plans work, we wouldn't be here right now. That we put signage up and the signage isn't working. And that's what we're saying right now, is to move the signage again. So if we had somebody out there that came out and said, okay, we understand now why this didn't work, because to Chief Walter's point, everybody, this isn't gridlock. We are in hillsides and different workways around different areas. And so that's what I was making a comment to, not that signs don't work, but if in our case in rural Arizona and Globe, Arizona, it is completely different than what you might get in metropolitan. So those studies are made for metropolitan, not in urban area.
I'm sorry, Councilman, I disagree with that only because these are accepted signs in rural and cities. So, I just know this because it's been part of my work life. So I just feel like we need to look at what.
I'm okay with what the council wants to do. I'm okay with what the council wants to do. If the council wants to go and put the signage up and move the signage and get more lighting and do that, of course, this isn't a one person, one vote type deal. This is what the council agrees upon. this is what the council agrees upon.
So if I may, Mayor.
Go ahead, John.
Mayor and council, to address some of the discussion here, just so we all know that a traffic study does, do the whole intersection, traffic counts and the volume and such. The prior study that was done, there's nothing on this bridge that's not meeting federal standards. That's the MUTC standard. That's set for rural or any state. This would not be built to something that we just opted to put up. So the signage meets the criteria, the intersection, the thermoplastic, that's all to the MUTCD federal standard. The design was to the federal standard. Our funding would not go through if it's not to a federal standard. So all those standards are already in place. So but not to take away from the study, but also we understand that the signage is not cheap either, because the reflective, the flashing signs are almost $1,500 a piece. So we're talking close to almost $9,000 in upgraded signage. So is it a safety factor? Yes, I have no problem with that. I wanted the recommendation to have this discussion because the thing is if we, to Councilman Letham's point, if we look to spend the funding on the signage, and we do have to come back at some point to say, hey, we're gonna do the study. The study says these signs are not making sense for what we placed there, because they're gonna be all federally, they're all gonna meet the standard. But if a study tells us otherwise, to say maybe the sign should be 50, 100 feet, 200, those things would have to be moved. We go off of the standard. I'm not gonna put a stop sign without getting the measurements and the criteria from a stop sign in 20 feet back and 250 for site clearance. All those, that's why we have our engineer. That's why those Councilman Rios points it out. Those are standards that we meet for traffic control daily. So just to consider that, the signs aren't just, aren't cheap either. So that's why I kind of wanted to have this discussion to see what route we might want to take to do the study, or both, or whichever it would be up to you, your direction.
And, well, you got another comment, Chief?
Mayor and council, I agree with John. Any of the signage and stuff that they're doing, it meets the national standard. But I would also agree with Councilman Lethem that the fact that this is a rural community and there's some elements that, like the blind corner coming off of Hill Street and stuff like that, is problematic. However, I would ask this. Give us an opportunity to make the mitigating facts and do some enforcement action, because I think a lot of what we're experiencing right now has everything to do with it's new and it's going to take a little bit of time. And the few times I've been through there, and I'll make it a point to spend more time in there over the next few weeks to see, and then I can report back on our enforcement action. I don't want to say enforcement action, but our educating efforts for the area. But regardless of that, we're still going to want I would highly recommend, whether we do the traffic study first or not, we still get the signs that John's talking about, because we've seen a marked improvement in the areas that we've placed them. Jesse's Road needs them. I think coming off a hill, regardless of what we do, we need to put them in there. The one thing I would tell you concerning the traffic study is I agree with the fact that you want to hit your most congestive conditions, and a week from now, we're not going to have those. Yeah. And so if we can buy a little time, let John and I work on trying to do some mitigation that we've talked about tonight, and then if we are having some issues and stuff come August when the school kicks back in, then do the study. But I think we can address, my professional opinion is I think we can address it with what we're talking about tonight, hopefully. But there again, if somebody on council or the city has been getting some directed specific complaints, they're not reaching me. And so if people have concerns about the intersection stuff, reach out to us and we'll try to take a look at it from our standpoint at the police department.
So, and Mr. Mayor, members of council, just for the context, if we were to do a study, it would primarily be to look at what we have now compared to a 3-way stop and a 4-way stop. And that would be the major discussion that the study would evaluate.
And Mayor and Council, from my perspective, and because the way it's laid out, I would argue adamantly against a four-way stop because I don't want to take the chance of putting vehicles on the railroad tracks right there. But I'm completely comfortable with the three-way stop right there. But that again would be a change and new to everybody.
And liability, we would not change it to a three-way without the support of a traffic study, as Councilman Gonzalez talked about the liability issue.
Well, the original study didn't address that until we got the bridge built, correct? And you guys realized we can't stop there.
Correct.
So, I mean, we paid for that much, so we know, that we can't do that, I mean.
So Councilman, actually, the study, the design, that's the original design. That's what was proposed to mayor and council.
It's a two-way.
That's what was approved, was a two-way. So when we had the other discussion about possibly doing stop signs and stuff, that's when it went back to EPS and when they actually did their traffic engineers and they reevaluated and it says, no, this is actually not the best idea and we're gonna stick to the original design. So we stayed, so it hasn't changed again. It's actually the original design that was proposed.
Yeah, I remember it came up and
And I kind of remember when Miami put that stop sign in the middle of town by the park and everybody was running it because nobody was used to it. And I think finally people realized when they were stopping people and giving tickets for not stopping there, the town was. In fact, I know people that got tickets there for running that stop sign. It was after 30 days or something.
Yeah, and for us, I think it's incredibly important that we give a grace period here because it is new and that we do an education campaign with the intent of, I'd give it more than 30 days. I think doing the things that John has done with the lit stop signs is hugely beneficial. And I think it's having the desired impact. I think if we add a couple of the radar speak signs, that will have a positive impact. We've seen incredible positive impact of it for on 60 since we got those up and going. So you're always going to have one-offs. You just are. But I think all in all, I think we're headed in the right direction. Can we do some tweaks and improvements? I think we can. Can we do some more educational things? Yes, I think we can. But I would ask that give us an opportunity to try to make some of those changes. And then let's see if we need to reevaluate it in August and see if we do need a traffic study. That would be my recommendation from the police department.
So you got your input from council. There's 2 council members missing. If you want to discuss that with them too, that's your option, but you got the input from the president right now.
I'm going with what's decided tonight.
Okay.
And that will be to work on signage and enforcement and then come back if need be. And we can commit to an update in August and let you know how it's going. Also shout out to the nice people who gave us some feedback and everything on a letter that came here from Stephanie Jacobson, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah, and some information they had to poll, and about, I think 40% looking at a three-way and 27 a four-way, but no, it's been a hot topic and people talking about it. But I like I say, we had a good discussion here and thank you all for that.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Josh. Yes, go ahead.
Along with that, maybe a public service announcement would also help in communicating this situation there with our citizens. Just to add to the process of trying to mitigate this.
Sounds good. Go ahead, John.
No, Mayor and Council, I just want to kind of add on to just wrapping up with Councilman Letham's, when we're talking about the federal standard, I carry the MUGCD book in my truck if I have, and you can always pull it up on your, Google it and find it in the standards. There is, geez, Luis, there is no intersection that's going to match really, so we're talking about federal standards. There's not a Connie's Bridge friendly in the book. And I learned a long time ago through ADOT engineers that sometimes you're gonna have to step back and reevaluate setting up traffic control, setting up this type of thing. So that's basically, we need to take the time to focus and say, this is specific, this is why, and find those avenues. And it could be, like I said, these types of things that we're talking about now. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, John.
Moving on to item F, Revolutionary HR Consulting will present the council with the results of the 2025 employee survey, and we have LaCoya online.
Latoya, are you there?
Hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Latoya, thank you.
Okay, good. Let me just try to turn my camera on. Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello,
Good
Latoya.
evening.
How are you?
Can you see my screen that I've shared?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. Okay, thank you so much for the time on the agenda this evening to go over the 2025 employee engagement or employee survey results. Very nice to be here again. It's been a while. Everyone's doing wonderful. You don't call me nearly as much. So I try not to take that personally. I know that just means things are going very, very well. So again, thank you for the time this evening. So congratulations on the 4th year of the survey. Previous survey years were in 2020 for the inaugural survey, 2022, 2023, and then now 2025. So kudos to the organization for this level of commitment in terms of seeking employee feedback. It really does strengthen the trust regarding the administration's commitment to really creating and maintaining a positive employment experience, and helps to provide this benchmark against survey data from those previous years that I mentioned. So for purposes of this evening's presentation of results, we'll go over the methodology and the participation rates, what the overall scores were, the highest favorable and unfavorable response percentages. And you may remember this format from previous years that we highlight the things in those areas. Also the themes that we were able to derive from the comments via our comment analysis. And then a few key findings and then next steps for moving forward. Before I get started, are there any questions or comments or anything before I dive in?
Doesn't look like it, LaCoya.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you. And of course, please feel free to ask questions along the way. So the survey data was collected over a 3-week period earlier this year from January 13th through February 4th. The survey was again available in both English and Spanish versions. And as has been the case in years past, all the responses were and remain completely anonymous. The survey questions sought to solicit, so to speak, employee views from several different perspectives, including individuals. So these were some of the categories: individual, supervisor, team, department, and the organization. Demographic data was also collected from all participants that represent the departments, job roles occupied, tenure with the city, and age. It's noteworthy that this is only the 2nd year that we've collected or included age as a demographic or in the demographic. So this is the 1st year that we actually have comparison data for that particular segment or category. And then the data is based on the 3 categories of favorable, neutral, and unfavorable responses. So the participation rate was very good, 86%, which represents 103 out of the 120 employees who responded to the survey. That also represents a 14% increase from the previous survey in 2023. That participation rate was 72%, and then the year prior to that in 2022, it was 69%. So that rate of participation really continues to increase since 2022, and that's another positive indication that the consistency of administering the survey is likely contributing to increasing employees' willingness to participate in it, so that trust continues to be built regarding the survey process and its worthiness of participating. It's also notable that several respondents commented that they felt the City of Globe is listening to the feedback that they've provided in the past, and that they feel the city is trying to grow and So this is likely due to consistent, organizational responses to the survey and linking or communicating, the actions that you've taken, linking those to the survey feedback. So, kudos again, to the leadership team there and the council support of administering the survey and the related actions that the leadership team has taken in response to survey feedback. And lastly, it's also a testament really to the employees' level of engagement to a certain degree regarding what's occurring within the organization, and that they are making connections in terms of what is occurring and the feedback that they've provided. And again, even the worthiness of them taking the time to provide their feedback. Here you can see on this slide a breakdown of participation, more the detail here. The numbers in parentheses over to the right, they represent the percentage change from the last survey. And you may notice that a couple of areas are over 100%, and that's just due to some employees identifying the incorrect department. There were, in particular, several employees actually from Public Works, the street and fleet, indicated that they self-selected administration, for example, as their department by mistake. So you can see here from this detail, though, this alignment I was saying previously that the participation rate continues to increase, again, reaching 86% as compared to 72% in the last survey and 69% prior to that. The participation rate is almost back to the inaugural participation rate in 2020, which was at 90%. So that's the highest that we've seen it. And again, it dipped down since then, and now it's significantly increased. So now let's talk a little bit about the results. Take a look at the overall response percentages, and what the response percentages were by category. A little bit about our analysis. The analysis of results, that includes a review of all of the responses, the response percentages by question category, job role, tenure, age, as I mentioned, and then the identification of the highest, or what we would call favorable scores or response percentages, and then the lowest, or the unfavorable response percentages in each of those areas. So the spread of possible responses, they range from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And then response percentages, we group them as favorable, neutral, and unfavorable. And they represent the specific responses that employees provided. So the green bar represents the favorable responses, which are those that indicate a strongly agree or agree. Blue bar represents neutral responses, and then the orange bar represents the unfavorable scores, which include responses of disagree and strongly disagree. So the total favorable response percentage for this year's survey was 75%, meaning that 75% of respondents selected agree or strongly agree in response to all questions, which indicate positive attitudes toward the city of Globe and their employment with the city. Of those favorable responses, 38% were strongly agree and 38% were agree. 17% of the responses were neutral. Neutrality indicates ambivalent, an ambivalent perception, if you will. And then favorable responses increased this year in 2025, 8% as compared to 2023.
Great.
So it's almost back to the overall favorable response percentage in 2022 was 77%. So it's almost there, and it's higher than what we saw in 2020, which was 73%. In addition to that, the neutral responses decreased by 4%. So that's down to 17% now, down from 21% in 2023. And they were 16% in 2022. 8% of the responses were unfavorable, meaning that the respondents selected disagree or strongly strongly disagree in response to, those questions, which represents, some negative attitudes or beliefs. The lower neutral and unfavorable responses are of note because they indicate that more employees have moved to the favorable sentiment overall. So that's significant. So we're not, in other words, we're not just seeing the neutral response go down or seeing that that goes down and the unfavorable goes up. We're actually seeing some of those sentiments shift over to favorable, responses. So that's, very significant as well.
LaCoy, we got a question?
LaQuay, that's based on the number of responses or the number of employees who participated?
I'm sorry, you said based on the number of responses, what was that?
Yeah, I mean, the favorable increased by 8%. That's based on the 103 employees that responded?
Yes, I'm having a hard time hearing you, but if I heard you correctly, you're asking if the percentage is based on the 103 respondents?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you. That's not-
Was that another question there?
No, that was it.
Okay. all right.
Freddie or Jesse, you got any questions? I'm sorry.
No, not right now.
Okay, very good. And then here is just a visual that just shows the change, in the favorability, responses over the years. Favorable response rates, they increased across most of the questions, with only 3 questions having a decline, again, in the overall favorable response, scores. And then the average favorability increase was 9.5%. Which is a significant improvement over 2023, when most questions saw a decrease in favorability. And the average decrease was 9.75, again, back in 2023. So again, that's significant. So now we have this 4-year benchmark, that shows the overall favorability. Again, it's increased since 2023. And while 2025 didn't have the highest favorable, overall that was achieved in 2022, again, it has increased since the last survey in 2023. And then again, as I just mentioned, the lower, neutral, and unfavorable response rate indicates, more employees again have moved to that favorable sentiment as well. And then with regards to demographics, the demographic analysis shows that most of the areas with the higher favorability scores, they've remained the same, with, administration, police, the fire department, with regards to departments. In terms of tenure, remain the same largely with, the new employee group, those who have been with the city for a year or less, with the directors in terms of job role, and then in the age categories of 61 and over, and then 26 to 30. All of those groups, again, have maintained the highest scores, highest favorability scores. Now let's take a bit of a closer look at the response indexes by category. So first up is the perspective category. This is the individual, supervisor, or manager, team, department, and organization. So the far right column shows the percentage change in favorable responses since 2023. All of the areas have increased, and 3 of them actually increased by double digits. That's a large increase in a short period of time, a favorable increase. The team's question category, that remains the highest favorable response percentage sitting at 82%, which is a 5% increase from 2023. And it was the same in 2020, 83% in 2022. So while it dipped down in the last survey, it's climbed back up. In general, the unfavorable responses have decreased overall. In some areas, the neutral response percentage grew, but in others, those who were previously unfavorable again moved directly into that favorable range. Employees continue to respond overall most favorably to questions regarding the aspects of work that involve those closest to them. So their teams, coworkers, direct supervisors, the department, so in response to questions regarding those groups. Employees responded less favorably to questions that impacted them individually. And it's not unusual to see that, particularly when things are farther away from an individual. There's less context, there's less understanding. We tend to see less trust. Again, the further things are removed away from an individual. So the further away from an individual, the further away from their team, their department, things of that nature, we tend to see some of the trust levels decrease a little bit across the board in terms of surveys. Now this slide reflects the department scores or their response percentages. And you can see here the administration group continues to have the highest overall favorable response percentage, sitting at 86%, which is an increase of 8% from 2023. And then you can see the other departments here that are listed on the slide: library, museum, active adult center at 81%, police department at 79%, the fire department at 74%, public works, fleet and street at 66%, and then public works, water, sewer, and water office at 57%. Public works, both the fleet, street, and the water and sewer, they have, while they have the lowest overall scores, only public works, fleet and street, and the library, museum, active adult center had significant decreases in favorability this year as it relates to some individual questions. And overall, the 6 departments saw increases in favorable scores since 2023. And then the job role demographic, that includes who identifies as directors, assistant directors, supervisors, the managers, and individual contributors. So by job role, those who identified as directors and assistant directors, they have the highest favorable response percentage at 96%, which is also an increase from 2023 of 3%. And then the supervisor and middle manager group had a response score of 74%, which is an increase of 1% from 2023. And then those non-supervisors, while they had the lowest positive response percentage of 72%, it was still an 11% increase of favorability from 2023. So again, you can kind of see all these trends that they follow, these positive increases, some more significant than others. And then by tenure, new employees, again, those defined as having 1 year or less with the city, have the highest favorable response percentage for the 4th year in a row at 90%. That represents a 12% increase as compared to 2023. And then as you can see from the slide here, employees with between 2 and 5 years of employment with Globe had a 68% favorable score, while those with 6 to 10 years have 80% favorable, 11 to 15 years, 67% favorable, and then employees with more than 15 years with the city, 74% favorable response percentage. Now, while employees who've been with the city for 11 to 15 years have the lowest, overall favorable response percentage, there were certain areas for the 2 to 5 year employees and the 15-year plus employee groups that did show some significant decreases. Those areas were related to stress levels for both of those groups, 2 to 5 year and 15-year plus. Stress levels, support, and growth and direction, respectively.
So the longer they work, they tend to be less satisfied?
It's in
Is what it
between.
looks like?
I can't hear, can someone maybe closer to the microphone repeat that question, please, Councilmember?
So that, it indicates that the more time they work, the less happier they are. Correct?
Yeah, one could look at that, exactly, and that stands to reason that especially when you look at your new employees, they tend to still be, somewhat on the honeymoon phase, or they don't have as many experiences to kind kind of, influence their perspective. So a lot of things can contribute to people who've been there longer feeling this way because again, they've had more experiences. They've had more opportunities to, be involved in different things or maybe even, attempt to promote into different roles and not get them. So, yeah, by and large, because they've just had more experiences. So yeah, that would be something, potentially to lean into a little bit to find out why that is, among, these particular groups.
Okay, thank you.
And then age group scores, as I mentioned earlier, this is just the second year that we included age as a demographic. So for the first time, we're able to look at, this demographic feedback over time. So in this age analysis, we see that the 41 to 50-year-olds make up the largest number of employees by age category. And they've had some huge swings in favorability scores with some of the highest and the lowest scores. They had the least amount of increases, this survey period, and they've had low favorability scores in areas related to opportunities for advancement, fair promotions, and the city, the statement, or the question, excuse me, on the survey, whether the city of Globe cares about employees, and also recommending, the city as a great place to work. They also have the highest unfavorable scores, in response to the city of Globe effectively communicates information at 27% unfavorable, and also I'm ready to take on more responsibility in my job at 24% unfavorable, and the level of stress in my job is manageable at 21% unfavorable, is what we see in that group. And it's notable that while lower survey scores from smaller groups are noted, so for example, the 18 to 25 age demographic, there's only 5 that identified with that demographic on the survey. Generally, those smaller numbers, those smaller groups are a little less concerning in comparison to the smaller, or excuse me, in comparison to the larger groups, such as that 41 to 50. There's 29 employees that identified in that age demographic on the survey, because that latter group represents a broader segment of the population, of the organization's population. So the feedback from those larger groups, they do tend to have a more significant impact on the overall trends. And so typically, it may be a bit of a higher priority, for follow-up with this group, or some action in whatever form, that might be based on the sheer size of that group. And then this is just a visual that shows, what we covered, that just shows the favorability ratings across all of those different categories. So I won't spend much time here, but this is just, kind of just some data visualization for your reference. And then, we'll look at the top 5 scoring questions, and we'll look at the bottom 5 as well. So these are those individual questions that yielded the highest response percentage, the highest positive response percentage. These percentages align with the earlier slides that I covered that showed employees express more favorable sentiments, again, as it relates to working with their supervisors, working in their teams, more so than at the department or organization level, although the 5th highest question does dip into that department work and employee sentiment around the work in their department. So first of the top 5 at 92%, the success of my department is personally important to me. And these are all, excuse me, they're not all increases. All but one are increases. This is a 1% increase from 2023. At 89%, my supervisor treats me with fairness and respect. That's a 12% increase from 2023. 88%, I respect and value the members of my team and their contributions. Now that's a slight decrease from 2023. The only question that still made it in the top 5, but yet decreased from 2023. At 87%, the people I work with treat me with respect. That was a 6% increase from 2023. And then at 84%, I feel comfortable working with people in other departments. And that was a 5% increase from 2023. And then moving into the bottom 5 questions, and this is a little bit, a lot of information, I should say, on this slide, but I wanted to include, the difference between the favorable and the the unfavorable and the favorable response percentage, as well as the percentage, shift, in regards to each of them. So, at 13% unfavorable, 61% favorable, the organization has an effective system in place for communicating necessary information. That's a decrease of 9% in the unfavorable realm, and an increase of 13% in the favorable realm. So I thought it was important to just kind of include that, because while they come in the bottom five, while we look at the unfavorable response percentage, it's important to balance that with the movement on the favorable as well. And then 12% unfavorable, 63% favorable. Overall, I'm satisfied with the benefits offered to me. That was a decrease of 5% in unfavorable, and an increase of 4% from 2023. 12% unfavorable, 71% favorable. I feel that I can share my ideas and opinions without fear of negative consequences. That was a decrease of 11% of unfavorable, and an increase of 13% in favorable responses. Again, very, very significant there, movement on both sides. 11% unfavorable, 53% favorable. The City of Globe cares about employees. That was a decrease of 15%, and a decrease also of 8%, for respectively for both of those categories. And then 11% unfavorable and 60% favorable, that I am satisfied with the opportunities for my own advancement in this organization. There was a decrease of unfavorable 7% and an increase of 9% in favorable responses for that question. Any questions or comments thus far before we go into the comment themes?
Questions, comments, Renee?
I'm okay.
Doesn't seem like it, LaCoya.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Then moving on, there were 4 open-ended questions, and this slide reflects the results of the comment analysis that we conduct, which consists of identifying the themes and the categories that emerged from those open-ended questions. So they're arranged into these 3 categories, which were the overarching themes: the strengths, areas of improvement, and then reasons why employees work for the city. So under strengths, some of the reoccurring comments were people, the fellow employees. 32% of comments reflected that. Teamwork, family, togetherness were comments that were used that surfaced 27% of the comments. Leadership at another 27%. Culture at 10%, and then caring and support. Those terms were mentioned in the comments, at reflecting 8% of those comments regarding strength. Areas of improvement, compensation at 30%, staffing, including retention, concerns about retention, 25%, communication at 20%, benefits, specifically the cost of insurance at 15%, and equipment concerns at 9%, representing 9% of the comments. Now, those equipment needs, they were highlighted throughout those comments, specifically employees believing that there's a need for more equipment, specifically newer, more reliable equipment. Some of those comments were suggesting that previous requests for equipment have been met with the quote-unquote cheapest solution, with alleging that some of the equipment is breaking more often or more easily, or that there are real concerns about how faulty equipment is creating some risk. Percentage-wise, not a large number of comments around that, but they were just enough to come up in the comments analysis with some of those specific concerns. Other comments that came up in terms of staffing centered around the perception that perhaps with regards to favoritism, that some employees are treated more favorably, either by being provided more opportunities or being able to make mistakes without recourse or less recourse. The Public Works Department was specifically called out as having a high degree of favoritism. Not a lot of comments along those lines, but again, some, enough to come up on the radar. But again, not anything, overwhelming, in terms of that. And then reasons for why employees work here, expressed care for the community, in the city of Globe at 28%, the mission and the vision at 28%, the reason for the work at 18%, retirement, at 18%, as a retirement as a benefit, and opportunities to learn and grow and develop specific skills at 13%. There were also comments that came in, throughout the comment section about leadership. Very positive comments about leadership and about the efforts that they're seeing leadership make, about the council and the support that the council has provided. So again, some very positive comments about leadership in the comment section as well. Again, specifically administration and the council in particular. Some of those comments identified the mayor in particular, the city manager, the chief of police, again, the city council overall, providing the support for employees, caring for employees, having a willingness overall to grow and improve as an organization, having a strong view for the future. So those were, again, significant. Those comments represent, in 2023, those types of comments represented about 13% of the comments, and this year they represented about 27%. Again, indicating employees have a stronger sense of support from leadership. So that's one of the key observations. I kind of jumped ahead on that one, but that's one of the key observations that we identified. Beyond that, again, overall the participation rate has continued to increase, as I mentioned earlier. Again, noteworthy observation is that your favorable scores have continued to increase across all questions, with the exception of 3. Your highest increase in favorability was 17%, and an average increase across all questions in favorability was 9.5%. And again, there were both decreases in the neutral category as well as unfavorable, which does indicate a shift of employees shifting to more positive sentiments. And then I mentioned those comments about leadership being very positive. There are also major increases, 17%, with employees looking forward to coming to work, feeling like they're recognized for their efforts. There was that decrease, as I mentioned, a slight decrease in the belief that the city of Globe cares about its employees across some response categories, or demographic, categories. And the demographic analysis shows that most of the areas that had that higher favorability, they remain the same, as I mentioned earlier. New employees, those departments in terms of administration, fire, police, and then with the director role, and then in the age category. Those all have maintained the same in terms of those high scores. And then insurance costs, as I mentioned, those, the equipment, and then the favoritism, those were some areas of concern that stood out in terms of themes. So maybe potentially something for you to lean into a little bit more to find out what is driving some of those comments. Which is a good segue into the next steps as this survey has wrapped. I know, or I believe that Paul has already been doing some work in response to the results. I know it took a while to get me scheduled and then rescheduled on the agenda. So appreciate your patience and grace in making that happen. But what the next steps typically are would be to determine the logistics for sharing those survey results, which I'm sure Paul can speak to in terms of where that's at in the process. So cascading the information here to you all, to the council, to the leadership team, and then outwardly to all staff. Scheduling any type of executive briefings that may need to occur beyond what we've already had. And then action planning, continuing that, identifying those priority areas of focus, identifying what it is that you can influence and control at this time and what it is that you cannot, and then developing short and long-term goals around that, prioritizing those actions, assigning responsible parties to oversee the development of those actions and the implementation thereof, authority, and setting timelines associated with that, and then establishing your communication strategy as you've done in years past. That appears to be working quite effectively based on the increases in favorable response percentages that we're seeing, as well as some of those comments. Keeping employees informed of the progress so that they can continue to connect the dots in terms of the importance of their feedback and what's being done in response to the feedback that they have been. That's the last slide, that I had, in terms of, the results. Are there any questions or comments or anything you'd like me to lean into a little bit further?
Questions or comments from the council?
Mayor, I do have one question as it pertains to our handbook, our personnel handbook.
Yes.
Look, when, have you updated that at all? Have you looked at that or updated that? Maybe that would alleviate if we gave every employee new and seasoned employee a copy of the updated employee handbook as far as how we handle, the HR handles processes. And kind of just reiterate that then.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Latham, for that question, and council. That is, we have assisted with a policy update project. That is something that has been handled internally, with the HR, manager there. But we have been providing support, in getting that, handbook updated. So I don't know, if the updates have been published, as yet, given it was handled internally, but I suspect Paul can provide some additional detail in terms of the timing for that.
Yeah, so, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Councilman Latham, we're in the final stages of approving that. We need to, we've worked with LaCoya, gone through it at the top, and we need to just get that out to the directors to see if there's any department-specific things that we've missed, or any of the changes would impact them, lean on their expertise, and then we plan on implementing that very soon. It's a pretty big task. There's a lot there, and so we don't want to rush it, but it's like I say, it's in progress. I would say should be ready before the end of the budget year. Just giving a date.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Or
Yeah.
any other information I can provide?
I don't right now, Mr. Mayor.
What's that?
I don't have any
Right,
comments
okay.
right now.
I don't either.
LaCoya, I appreciate I think this is very important or it is very important for our council and our staff to, to work through this. And like you said, this is the 4th year doing it. I just got to say that this council that I've been honored to work with really has been very proactive, aggressive in what their vision is. And that's about bettering our community. We don't have any agendas of our own. It's only about really improving our community. And with that, yeah, we do expect a lot more from our employees, and we need their buy-in to really work at our vision, because we're the ones that get the credit, but they're the ones that do the work. Yeah. And we really appreciate everything that all our employees do. And we are working hard to try and increase, again, staffing. We hear that staffing, retention, compensation, stuff like that'll affect the employees. So it's not that we're not seeing it, but there's a lot that we have to deal with and in the whole scheme of it. So again, we appreciate all our employees, and we appreciate, LaCoya, you continuing. I think this is a continuation that we need to do this survey, so we continue to improve in certain areas. We've seen improvement, but I think we still got to move forward with some more.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, just to pick it up where this leaves off, last year we had the survey. There was some enlightenment there. Or maybe last year or 2 years, I'm pretty sure it was last year. And then we put that and built that into my goals, and then I built that into director level goals, and that is that we work on these issues that we find out, and I think we've made progress with making sure that we communicate better, making sure that people understand kind of the rigors of what they see if they see something that's out of place, that there's a chain of communication so they can get an answer and not, be surprised like, wow, I don't understand why that happens. That seemed odd. And we can get those answers. The newsletter that we've started, some group meetings and everything like that. But on top of that, in going into this study, it's like, how can we better utilize this? And what we're working on is something that we have adopted from more of a public safety side, relationship by objective. I won't go into the technical explanation of what that is, but it's a way for us to get together with small groups of employees from each category. We're in the internal process of putting that together and getting together to look at some of the key findings that need to be addressed and say, okay, we pull from what Lacoya survey has put on the table, and then ask groups of employees from different departments to work together to find, questions and possibly solutions and recommendations. It doesn't go into a budgetary item, but it's all about, how can we better understand what processes we do better? How can we communicate better? How can we take advantage of benefits to the city? Whatever it is, we're going to do our best to have at least the buy-in from rank and file to ask the questions. They may have ideas that we haven't thought of. There may be understanding that we can share that has never made it down to that level. But most importantly is just the different members of the departments working together on a team like this has its own inherent benefits. So it's something that we're putting together this year. We've started the process. We're doing that concurrently with the budget. But budget, we have to get that done. But I think we have positive hopes that that's going to be a method to take this information and do even more with it. And so we can keep building our numbers and keeping, getting the message across and keeping, quality of life for employees as high as possible.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Marina.
All the things that you're doing, your administration is doing, needs to be commended. You sent one of our public works personnel to Washington, D.C. No names, but I wanted to let you know that I spoke to him the other night. And he got the difficulty of the job that the council does and why they go to Washington. He met with senior staff and the delegation, and he got that big picture, and he was impressed that he was allowed to dialogue with the delegation, the federal delegation. He was impressed that he was selected to go. Anything you can do like that to broaden the window that our employees have to get to see above and beyond what they're doing, I think it motivates them when they come back. And he sounded very motivated because he got the big picture and understood why he was doing the work he was doing and what part that he plays in making that happen. So you're doing a good job in that aspect, broadening the views and the horizon of our people, and that's commendable. Thank you for doing that.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Gonzalez, thank you for that. I on a larger scale, we're looking for as many unique training opportunities for staff at all levels. From some of the stuff that the training that helps them build their skill set, prepare them for promotions, to leadership training, to training that we know helps them become better managers, better leaders, better better in their position. And we're very flexible and open to ideas that are brought forward to us. If somebody thinks there's an opportunity they can benefit from, like say we're building that toolkit of possible training opportunities that we can allow people to take advantage of. And it's paying off.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I remember when we first started this venture, you could see in the numbers that there was a lot of skepticism, uncertainty, and just a unwillingness to want to open up and provide their individual thoughts. And I think in relatively short time, 4 years, in my opinion, to move the needle on the staff and the directors being able to feel a willingness and openness to have that dialogue, because not only does that get to the city manager, but through that conduit with the city manager, it does filter into the council, the mayor and council. And that just shows the responsiveness, and it just shows that there is a true willingness to provide the best outcome for employees at any level. It's really impressive, Lakoya. I thank you. This is such a very well put together and detailed piece of information that we can all absorb and learn from, and learn that, not only learn from, but learn that directions matter, and personnel matters, and leadership matters in an organization like ours. And I also agree with Councilman Lito that, through all this mechanism, policies and procedures more than likely will change or develop to emphasize and to enforce the positive impacts. So I'm really pleased with this. This is really a moving the dial moment, and hopefully we can continue, just continue that path. This is good to hear. I really like the tonight's presentation on this. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Freddie. Mike?
In the key observations, it states that there is a decrease in the belief that the city of Globe cares about employees. Are we having personnel issues where people actually feel they're not respected, or is that just a common thing that goes around? So I know that some employees, if you talk to them, they feel like you're condemning them, but from my work.
You have to realize that this is taken as a snapshot in time and space and place. When you think about taking this, you're taking this and basing it on everything that's going on at the time. And any given day, any given week, you have different issues and wins and successes,
Sure.
or problems that you're trying to resolve that may have hit the HR level, and you capture that, and people are gonna think about their most recent history for that, and it's just kind of you get rid of those ups and downs by the mass across the way. When I saw all these high numbers, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be even tougher next year to beat this, because it's gonna,
Sure.
it may stabilize right at this rate, and that's what we're gonna get. You're never gonna get 100% on everything. Everybody's gonna have opinions, and we're okay with that. I think Dale gives the best example that if they're after this process he went through, the largest complaint was the number of trash cans in the police garage and that. So I think if we can whittle it down to the more minor things, I think that is the goal. I can't address exactly why that number went down. All the other numbers went up, but I think it's just a mood, a sense across the organization that things are better, that we're doing well. But you catch somebody when something's going on, and it could be that's the first thing that pops in their mind when they did that. Also, we worked really hard to make sure everybody had access. The other big happiness or pleasure coming out of here is we didn't get a lot of feedback. I didn't have a chance to go through and do this. I wasn't able to get online. I felt I was uncomfortable doing this, especially in Public Works. They had a day where everybody just came together and had an event, and made it totally accessible that people could go through this event and log on and take their survey in comfort and privacy, but as part of the workday, and that worked out really well. So I think that somebody else said it, that the buy-in and the trust is building in the process of itself. Why that one number went down, I don't know.
Yeah. And then, she mentions under, the key observations about, the insurance costs were impacting lower paid employees. And we're gonna be, meeting with our employees on their benefits, so.
So we'll be talking about employee benefits tonight, later in tonight.
Yeah.
And just for the record, insurance costs have stayed flat for the past 3 years.
And I know we were talking the last council meeting about it and everything, and I saw that, and I thought,
Right, but I mean, I'm happy that insurance is something that we provide, that we see as a benefit, and it's an important benefit, and it's something that we can say we're different than other employers around here, and so that that everybody's paying attention and looking at that. That's one of the things that is on our list to talk about, is how people might better utilize the 3 options we have to make sure that they're getting what they need. We have our open enrollment about a month earlier than we had. It gives them more time to take that home, take it to their spouse, the family, to people they trust, and help make those decisions. We are still working to get to that 2/3, 1/3 split on dependent coverage, but the rates for employees we've been lucky with our utilization, that they're very stable. But I think that's the concerns have moved away from more major things and to things that I think are important for them to be everybody to be concerned about.
Okay.
Benefits should be a high concern, and so I think you're seeing that reflected in the survey.
Do you have any other comments before we move on?
Thank you, LaKoya,
Thank you, LaKoya.
as always.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you so much for the time, and again, congratulations on
Good
those,
seeing you again.
on the results this year.
And be careful in that gym.
Thank you.
I
What was that?
Be careful in that gym. Okay.
My lesson has been learned, yes.
You be careful. Okay. LaKoya,
you all. Good
thank you
night.
very much.
Good night. Item H is Globe Clean and Beautiful Spring Clean Event Update. Linda?
Good evening, Mayor and Council, once again. Have a short presentation. We just want to share the highlights of the very successful Clean and Beautiful cleanup that we had in April. And that also included the downtown spruce up, where we planted flowers in all of the flower boxes and in front of the depot. So it'll be coming up shortly. Okay. Thank you, Danny and Shelley. So as you'll see, some of our pictures, we had a 3-day cleanup event. The first 2 days, Friday and Saturday, was the downtown component, where we had 87 registered volunteers. I think this needs the, thank you for following for me. So as you see, there was a tree planted by Tally Ho Engineering. We had the group of 4-H students that helped plant in front of the depot. Up at the corner, I think we have some curb painters and rail painters. And then you'll see that picture of, Nosker Hill School broken out in just a moment. And then again, curb painters. We had a really talented pool of curb painters, and maybe we can pull them in for some maybe more community service. That'd be great. And then this is a picture of a snapshot of our Freeport volunteers that I believe they did handrails, or was it the benches? John, benches. Next, please. Thank you. You want to stick to that one for me?
Yeah. Evening, Mayor, council members. Just a reminder, we do these dumpster days or cleanups 3 times a year. this year we incorporated the use of the community drive, which was having the volunteers come in and do some extra activity throughout the city. I like this photo here, particularly because it really gives you a good snapshot of what we capture during these events. And this is huge. We now have people that call community development. They anticipate when, they all anticipate when we do these cleanups now. And so they call ahead of time, seeing when we have a set date during that month. But, this is what we'd otherwise find in our community. And these are the members of the community kicking in to bring this stuff to, a location where it could be properly taken care of.
Yeah. Oh, it only lasted for a second.
So, with this rollout of our dumpsters, we had 68.62 tons of trash. It's a lot of trash. We have it
Most
broken down
definitely.
in pounds, 137 plus thousand pounds of trash, 217 tires, and as Linda discussed, on the community outreach side, we had 87 volunteers. That's huge. People stepping up to serve the community and input and make a difference. So this is really what we strive for the Clean and Beautiful campaign for our city. We're working towards this. We are consistent with it at this point, and I think the community is really enjoying it and buying in on it more and more.
And of course, it couldn't have been possible without all of the volunteers that we had and our city staff. I want to give a personal shout out to Connie and Melissa, who organized all of those volunteers and made sure they each had somewhere to go, a game plan, a box. You should have seen the back hall of our offices. We had office boxes filled with all of their supplies that they were needed. So it was a very well-run machine. And then John and Public Works crews, all the prep work, that's what people, our community did, and even our staff, we don't realize all the prep work. All the flower boxes were gutted, cleaned out, so that they were ready to be planted in. So John, thank you so much. And then we had staff that day that were watering as fast as we could plant, and they're still looking just absolutely beautiful downtown. And so I want to give our staff that huge shout out. Of course, our Public Works Department, our Police Department, Fire as well, and we have a fantastic group of LDS missionaries that serve here locally in the Globe Miami area, and so it's usually 4 young men that do volunteer, and they're always ready to man the dumpsters and make sure everything is done safely. So we can't thank them enough. And then of course DJs is our vendor that picks up all of the roll-offs continuously. And I think we had, as Tony had mentioned, this is the most trash we've ever collected. So huge impact in the community, and hopefully one that we can continue 3 times a year. We'd love to see this, of course, continue, and we thank you for your support for this initiative.
Question.
Go ahead, Mike.
So, the dumpsters, they get hauled to the dump and dumped, or do they get dumped up there at the baseball field?
Oh no, they get taken to the dump. The
Okay, so
baseball field, that was just a
people
collection point.
Okay. I was just curious about that.
It looks like it, doesn't it?
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like that was,
In fact, when I went to the dumpster at the old hospital, the guy had to climb up there and said, well, we might be able to get that in or not. He said it was already full. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
So it was a great event, good feedback. Adding the volunteer component, it was a lot to manage, and again, thankful for our volunteer coordinators, and we hope to do it again. So thank
That
you.
worked out good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we had a consent calendar. Matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. Public hearing items are designated with an asterisk. Prior to consideration of the consent agenda, The mayor will ask whether any member of the public wishes to remove a public hearing item for separate consideration. Members of the council and/or staff may remove any item for separate consideration. Item A, consideration of waiver of section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule to allow action on the balance of the consent agenda. Accounts payable, $961,102.18. Item B, consideration to approve an adjustment to the expenditure account for contract number PS 2025-0159 with Living Street Alliance, moving the total amount funding of $55,929.79 from account 1280522200 capital outlay construction to account 2080081993 Safe Streets grant expenditure. Grant number 246105015, which was approved on April 22nd, 2025 by the Globe City Council. This adjustment represents no additional financial impact. And that's all we have. Do we have anybody from the public, staff, or council wishing to remove any of these items for separate consideration?
Mr. Mayor, was it 981,102 on the accounts payable? I think you said 986.
On the council, it was 961,000.
Yeah, isn't it 900?
Did I write it down? It's 961,102.18.
102. What do you have printed?
I show in here 981 total. Unless it got changed.
On your,
On my, accounts payable totals.
oh, okay.
Let us look real quick and see if there's a difference.
I look at the wrong one. This one?
It is. Mr. Mayor, it is 981,102.18 on the report.
So we'll make that correction on
Let's go with the higher number.
the agenda.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
are.
okay.
Yeah, it's just a typo.
The higher number will be
So the correction will be the 981,102.18.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
thanks for catching that, Mike.
The cover sheet was just, had a typo in it.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar as written.
Second?
Motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as read. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion passed. So we'll go to new business. At this time, I'll open a public hearing in consideration to approve a type 12 liquor license for Selena Smoke Street located at 999 North Broad Street, Globe. So we have a public hearing open. Any comments, or have you received any?
Nothing in email.
No, Mr. Mayor, and the notice was posted at the establishment for the required 20 days. The clerk's office received no comments opposed or for. So we're ready to take action and report back to the Arizona Department of Liquor Control.
And we have nobody in.
Type 12 liquor license. It is for a restaurant. It's beer, wine, and spirits. I misspoke.
Beer, wine, spirits. What's the difference between that and the 6 then, I guess? Is that?
I think this, maybe Jesse can.
I think allows you to serve on and the bar license,
Oh, okay. Thank you, Jesse.
So, Mr. Mayor, if there's no,
Oh, just close the public hearing.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have a vote on this, do we?
we don't,
Yes, council needs to take action on this.
Oh, we do. So we need to approve it. Okay, so. Okay, do we have a motion for approval of this, type 12 liquor license?
so moved.
Second.
We have motion and second for approval. We have motion and second for approval of type 12 liquor license for Selena Smoke Street. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion passed. Item B is consideration to approve staff request to apply for grant application number GF 2561-05068 to the Arizona Department of Transportation for the Transportation Alternatives Grant for $1,091,810 with a local match of $60,523 funded through GL 1280-53200. This funding would be utilized to complete the Broad Street Sidewalk Replacement Project. Travis.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. If you recall, back in 2023, ADOT brought back the Transportation Alternatives Program, which allows you to do multimodal type projects. And at that time, we did apply for design and construction to do what we call the downtown globe sidewalks. But through that process, ADOT would only fund design at that point if you didn't have design done already for a project. And if you had design done, they would fund the construction. But since we didn't have the design done, they only funded the design at that time. And so we would have to wait on the construction. And through that design money that we did get awarded, they had to narrow down the scope down to Broad Street just because it wouldn't cover the entire area that we wanted to originally. However, we did get that design done recently by Ardura, the consultant that ADOT selected. And so now we have a good cost estimate based on their design, and we are putting in for that grant for this cycle. It's a 2-year cycle. It comes out every 2 years, and so we're gonna take advantage of it and go after the construction funding. And so we're just asking for permission to go after that grant and to seek the local match that is needed to cover that.
Travis, does this encompass a whole downtown Broad Street, or?
If I recall, it's from Mesquite to, I believe, Sycamore, and then it jumps over a little bit from the Yuma Bridge, and can't think of the street right now, but there's a little section from Yuma and a little further east.
Or Haskins, I'm sorry.
Or Haskins, yes.
Haskins, okay.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, one quick question, the design, the engineering of this, that was a surveying they did with all the little white dots all up and down Broad Street where they spray painted everything?
I believe that was the.
Yeah, so that was the design, and now we're putting the money in for construction. This is a pretty, very lucrative, award, the grant. The match is very, very low. Considering the federal awards, 25%, this is what, 5.6?
5.7%.
5.7, that's very doable. And,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes. Go ahead.
So just the one side from those streets that you just gave?
It should encompass both sides, I believe.
it should both sides of Broad Street along that stretch.
Areas that they have identified that need work on, correct.
Thank you, I truly appreciate that, and this grant.
And Mr. Mayor, because this is permission to go and submit, we'll come back when we accept. So it's a new business, but there's no reason to waive the rule because we'll be hearing from it.
And there's no vote on it?
No, I would vote.
To move it forward to?
No, move it, approve it to be submitted.
Submitted, okay.
Yes.
One other question is, if we are awarded, when will it be approved? Or?
Well, there's 2 phases of it. We've already turned in the first phase, but there's a second phase that need to be submitted after they review pieces of it. And I believe that's gonna be at the end of this month, and at that point, I don't know the time frame yet, they haven't really released that, but I would venture that, since they are federal funds, they're probably gonna be available October 1 is my educated guess at this point.
So it's pretty soon. I was just concerned that it might be a year or 2 down the road and the inflation.
Relatively, it could be about a year by the time we get all the paperwork done.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Grant, other questions or comments, I motion to move this read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve application of this grant and be brought back at a future time. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion passed. Thank you, Travis. Item C is discussion and consideration of contract IGA 2026001, fiscal year 25-26 library service agreement with Gila County Library District, approving the distribution to the city of Globe of $131,900 plus $1,200 for telephone expenses, for a total distribution to the city of $133,100 for library services fiscal year 25-26 that will be received through GL 1530-40150, and request to waive section 2424-10A prior discussion rule. And Rael is not here?
No, she could not make it tonight, but Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is our yearly, service agreement. This is a distribution of money to the city of Globe. This is not an expenditure, but this is a revenue, in the amount of, $133,100 along with some telephone expenses. I'm sorry, $131,900. So we're really excited to once again partner with the county and bring that money to help subsidize the library in multiple ways. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to respond.
Any questions, comments? This is the amount we receive on an annual basis usually.
Yes.
This is the same amount almost. What it is.
And like I say, a very important amount of money we need to help make sure. Like I say, we could always do more and do better for the library, but I'll tell you, our Rail and our library staff do wonderful work with the money they have and the facilities they have.
They do a great job.
They really do offer that, libraries are not the same when we were kids. There's so much going on and they cover it all.
Mr. Mayor, if there's no further comments or concerns, I would make a motion that we accept the library services agreement with Gila County in the amount of $133,100 for library services.
Second.
Motion second for approval of item 5C. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion passed. Item D is discussion and consideration to approve intergovernmental agreement IGA 2026002 with Gila County, whereby Gila County will provide law enforcement dispatch services for the city of Globe at an annual fee of $272,047.92 for the period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026, with the option to renew for 3 additional one-year terms. Funds have been budgeted in account 1057-51238 General Fund Police Dispatch Contract and 1056-51238 General Fund Fire Dispatch Contract, and request to waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule. Chiefs.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. So this is a continuation of the agreement with the County Sheriff's Department to provide dispatch services for our first responders. There is an increase to this of $25,585 per year. This agreement has a sunset at 1 year with a 3 one-year extensions available with it with the same contract. We can't do it ourselves for less money, for this money. And with the increase in salaries that they've had to pay their dispatchers to try to hire and retain them, I expected the increase this year. So our recommendation is to waive the rule and approve it immediately if possible. Any questions on it?
Gotta have it.
Are you guys satisfied? I mean, communication is good with dispatch and the sheriff.
So we address issues as they arise. Is it the perfect scenario? No, but they're having the same issues that we're having, getting qualified people. The people they are hiring, they're putting a lot of time and energy into training them up and getting them up to speed. And we have a pretty good communication with the county to be able to address any ongoing issues, and they don't hesitate to address issues with our personnel. So it's working out well for us. I think it's a good partnership. I think they're kind of the go-to dispatch center in the county right now, with the exception of Payson.
Correct, yeah, everybody from Tonto Basin, down to the area agencies here are operating through that dispatch center. We meet typically on a monthly basis to go through any issues that do arise. They've been very responsive in some of the stuff we've done in terms of our CAD related stuff that we're operating jointly with Tri-City. They've been very responsive. We did a regional grant for incident command programming that they've been very responsive to in working to get set up and operational. So, like the chief said, I mean, it comes down to trying to do it in-house. The cost is going to be significant.
You got to set up
With
a whole
benefits and everything, yeah.
communication System and everything.
Okay. Questions, comments, or a motion?
Mr. Mayor, if there's no further, discussion on the action, I would make a motion to approve as presented.
And waive,
And
okay.
waive the rule.
And a second?
Got that, Shelley?
Yes.
Okay. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 5D and waive prior discussion rule. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chief.
council.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item E is discuss and consider the naming process for the new Upper Pinal Creek Bridge.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, we were asked by a council member and we need to tackle this. We have a new bridge, it's open, we talked about earlier. Officially, as ADOT calls it, the Upper Pinal Creek Bridge. Everybody refers to it as Connie's Bridge, but we need to have the ability to give it an official name that we refer to it by in documents and when you get to maps and telling the public and sharing, we need to be on board. So we need to come up with a name. I don't know what council's preference is for a process. You can go anywhere from you throw out a name and everybody votes for it to a public process and surveys and work groups. I know that Councilman Pastor has gotten a lot of feedback. I'm kind of thinking each council person should look to themselves as how do they want to communicate with their district and their constituents and determine a name if we put it out there that we're thinking about this. But I think before we go any further, I'd like to let Councilman Pastor talk about the communication he's been getting from his residents and what they have been saying, so you have a better understanding of why we need to deal with this sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I've shared the information on the Reese Canyon Bridge. There's a lot of information in there, and for the council members who aren't here presently, I will have Shelley make sure she puts your packet in your mailboxes, and there's one copy for your file also.
I got that.
So, all I can say is, a lot of those residents in Reese Canyon have been there for many, many, many years. It was originally identified as Reese Canyon Bridge. There's a lot of information in the packets that I gave you. I would ask each member to consider that information. And like I said, I have to be responsive to my constituency in my district. So basically, they would like to see it, a new bridge named Reese Canyon Bridge, based on all the history and everything. And most of our members are too young to remember all of this type of history, and I would request that you review it. And when we come to the next meeting and decide what we need to do, I would have to request that it be renamed the Reese Canyon Bridge. There's plenty of documentation in that, in the information that I've provided you. In fact, there's a comment in there from the Corps of Engineers that they recommended, the bridge be redone almost 25 or 30 years ago, and it's like, you know, it's taken us this long to get here. And there's highlights there for that information that's marked, and there's really not much more I could offer, is you know, I'm just responding to my constituency. They wanna name it the Reese Canyon Bridge, there's plenty of documentation there, but, you know, that would be up to each of the members of the council. I don't know.
Input from other councilmen then?
Excuse me?
I'm asking for input for other councilmen on the process.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Freddie.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think obviously this is a decade-long, replacement of an old bridge. I think initially, I believe, and, you know, I may be off a little bit, but it originated its name just by probably people saying, you know, this bridge is by a certain business or demographic area that just kind of molded its name after a store. I think it's proper to look deeply into the history of Reese Canyon, of the region, of the beginning days, the beginning times of this area and this bridge. I recently went through an name change in one of my water systems, in another system that I manage. And in the end, it was named after a valley that region is located. So that's historical. And I think we should look as a group at the historical value of this area and determine whether that's something that we want to name this bridge, because this bridge is gonna probably last beyond us. And so I think it's important that we look at the region of our city and properly hold that name and that value of a region where our community first began. So those are my thoughts. I think this is gonna take a little bit of dialogue, but I wanna thank Councilmember Pastor for acquiring this information that we can look at. And I'm more than willing to dive into it and just learn about this region of our community. Thank you.
Freddie, are you, on your comment, are you saying that council look into more deeply into the history, or are you open to a public input? Which one are you looking at, or both?
Well, I think, you know, if we're gonna put it to a public vote, then, probably not everybody's gonna be happy. Because they're all gonna have their own opinions. And if that's where the council wants to go, I'm fine with that, but I think we need to enrich the history of this area and preserve it, whether it's by council, mayor and council, or by the community as a whole. But deservedly, this documentation that Mr. Pastor has put together needs to be looked at, and you know, we all need to educate ourselves. I look forward to it. I mean, Reese Canyon, how far back does that go? I propose that question to Councilmember Pastor. Are we talking 50, 60,
The,
over 100 years?
the document, Freddie, the documentation that I've been provided, by the folks in the area, goes back to 1959 through, let's see, it's a 20-page document of different documents to 3/31/94. So,
So from, it began in the 50s?
yeah, in the late 50s, there was some stories about Reese Canyon Bridge. That would indicate to me that, and to the residents, that it's been Reese Canyon Bridge prior to 1959. I don't have the original.
No, we should talk to Stan.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
so.
So was the canyon named in the 50s?
Actually, I think the city council at that time was Dr. Robietti, and all of those people, so. This documentation that was provided me starts in August of '59 and shows documentation up to 3/31/94. Actually, the county got involved with the city and provided funding for the bridge. Corps of Engineers made a recommendation back in the early 50s or 60s that the bridge should be replaced, and, that was probably 25 years ago. So, this is a culmination of a lot of that, I think, as far as the bridge getting done.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, I think Shelley will put the documentation in your mailboxes for the other council
Yes,
members. that
I'll
aren't
be sure
here.
to pick it up, thank you. Mayor, are we gonna try and make the decision whether we go council members and mayor making the decision, or public? Is that?
Well, I think we're just getting input today as to what our thoughts are. I don't think it's a rush thing that we need to make a decision tonight.
No.
But it's just, we're getting at least our thoughts out there, how we would process or proceed. And that we give every councilman an opportunity to talk.
Okay, well, and I'm not trying to downplay the residents' opinion or values, but we have a lot of bridges in this town. And if we're going to propose a community-based decision, then we need to be ready to stand by all the future bridges that are going to be reconstructed. And that might be the expectation as well, that it's community-based. So I just want to plant the seed on that. I'm not pro or against community-based, but if we set a precedence, we're going to need to back that precedence moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Jesse, your comments?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm okay with calling it Reese Canyon Bridge. I think it suits where it's at. I think we start naming things, just putting different names on things regarding, if we call the Yuma Bridge the Reese Canyon Bridge and vice versa, people get confused. I think that, I just don't see it as such a big issue. I think we leave it up to the residents and let them decide, and I think that it'll alleviate us and give the residents something good to look forward to, naming something.
You bet.
That's what I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mariano.
I like that the public would have access to the process. And I think that's fair and inclusive. So I like that process. We can decide on mechanics of it later, but yeah, I think that the public should have input on this.
My thought is, Mike did a lot of homework. There's a big
Yeah, thank you.
packet here, extensive information. I'd like to dive into it and understand it before I would make a decision on which way to go.
To correct you, Mayor, this information was provided to me from the residents in the canyon. I didn't go out and research it. They brought it to me and said, this is why we want to name it that, so.
Well, it makes more sense. All our bridges, we got Cottonwood, we got Yuma, we got High Street, and I think Yeah, I'd like to dive into this and, I don't know if I really am either way for a public process. I'd like to read this first before I make my decision or recommendation.
So, Mr. Mayor, members of council, so then is your direction just to, give everyone some time to absorb the research,
The history,
that we have now on the option on the table? And then we'll come back and make a decision, as to where to go from there. Not necessarily a final decision, but just kind of a continuing.
Yeah, this is, they requested that I present this to city council, you know.
That makes
If
sense.
we want to do and let the public, of course, you know how it is when we let the public make the decision for us, we'll have 50 names and nobody will want to know what.
Yeah, well, and I would say that, it's much less awkward if you were to boil it down to, 3 to 5 and then
Sure.
run with that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be much easier than having, wide open. Or that they boil it down to 3 and 5 and then you pick from those.
Yep.
So,
And I think we did the same process with the Pasco stairs. We got the history of what really that stairway was about, and it made it kind of simple to name it Pasco.
Yeah.
Pasco stairs, and so, okay. So you got direction on that?
yeah.
No vote
we
on
have
that?
Direction. We'll-
Makes sense to you?
Yep. No, that's gonna be a process, and this is the start of it. Let's do the research.
Okay.
I was very impressed looking through some of the stuff.
I want to read it.
It talks about annexation and closing the copper mines, and it's very,
They did some, when they handed it to me, I thought, whoa.
yeah.
And
No,
so I told my, they asked me to bring it to council, so that's what we're doing.
and I will go to former Mayor Gibson and see what.
That'd be good.
No, that's
Oh.
so, he's,
Yeah, he could probably, he was around. I know
yeah,
he
no,
was
he's,
around.
no, he's still attending Rotary.
Is he?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep, he is. So, all right, Mayor, there's no action required on that.
Okay, item F, fiscal year 2025, 2026 budget update presentation, review and receive council direction on budget inclusions.
Okay. And Danny, can you throw up the PowerPoint? You notice that the only people left in the room are the budget team.
I know the
Sorry about that.
And Danny.
important ones, the ones with the finance answers for us.
Sometimes I wonder why we do certain things because,
We wore them out. Danny, we got anybody online?
they get penalized and,
Yeah.
and we do,
Well, and there is no winning on that. I mean, you had so many public presentations, and so we were trying to get the order down, and then, so it's working out. They're enjoying their time.
Take a run.
Okay. So, well, Mayor, I'm gonna wait. Well, you've seen this. Okay, so that's good. All right, so let me go ahead and go forward. Who's got
that's
the
this document.
Who's got the clicker? Okay, so, and let me pull mine up so I can see it properly. There it is. Okay, I got the first slide right there. So, like I say, currently we're on the, where did we go? Currently, we have the calendar, is the 13th, we're doing the budget rollout, healthcare and what we call low-hanging fruit, mainly the council, items. On May 21st, we're, 10 a.m., we're doing a council budget work group to work on the fund balances contingencies. 28th, which is a Wednesday, it's important to everybody that we remember that the 28th is not a Tuesday, it's the day after. That Monday is Memorial Day, and so we moved the meeting to Wednesday.
That's
And
what
we'll-
I was thinking about.
Oh,
Talk
which one?
to you, yeah. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. And then, so we will go through, the public meetings on fund balance contingency, CIP, property tax on that public meeting, in 2 weeks. June 10th will be the presentation of the tentative budget, and possible adoption. Again, adoption of tentative budget is the maximum that we can budget. And so that sets that. And then that starts the ticking clock till we go to final budget adoption on July 8th. and then adopt the tax levy on the 22nd of July. And we will talk about the tax levy once we, before we end this meeting. So you want to hit the next slide? Okay. So this slide represents the, where we're at in the way of our insurance. We were very happy that for the third year in a row, with our HMO, the PPO, and high deductible, the costs of the actual insurance plans have come back at the same rate as they had for the past 2 years. That's been very good. Siegel's been helping us with that, and so that's good. The only thing changing is that effort to do, I think we're doing a 1.5% increase each year to get the employee contribution to that 33%. If you'll notice that, like HMO family is already at 33%. We're very close with HMO single. Oh, and for single, we're at 15%. So cost to the employee, for family, 33% contribution for your dependents. And we're still very close on HMO single plus one. PPO, we're still making progress towards that. And then also in the HT, we're working our way there. If you look at the increase in percents, you can see the increases that we in those changes that we have there. 5.1% on HMO single plus one, just a 0.8 to get HMO family up there, and then PPO single, we got that to 15% with a 0.5%, and then PPO single plus one and PPO family 7.8 and 7%, and then you have the real numbers there that it's costing, and that is per pay $13 and $19, $13.60 and $19.86, and then in the HT down below, again, they've gone up respectively. HT single 5.53, HT single plus one, the 11.06, and HT family, the 15.47. But that still includes the benefits, the additional funds that we put into their high deductible HSA accounts that benefit them. So the increases are based on simply on getting the employee contribution to the stated rate that we picked, I think about 4 years ago, that we worked towards that goal. Questions about our healthcare costs and what we're proposing for this year? Okay, so moving on.
Just an increase on the percentage, just so I'm clear again on that. Or PPO, you're raising it 7.8%?
We're raising
PPO
it
single?
1.5%, which is the 5.53. But the percent of the percent of the raise is different than the percent of the increase from last year. Okay, so you're raising the number in the larger scale, but the size of the growth is 13% because it was pretty inexpensive to begin with.
Now I'm talking the PPO, it's 7.8.
PPO?
7.8 and 7. So it was 5.3 is what you're saying. So we're only raising it 1.5%.
Right.
To catch up, okay.
And like I say, we're done with PPO single.
Okay,
But
yeah.
the other two still need to go.
Okay.
They have a ways to go to get that 33%.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we are currently doing, have scheduled people to take advantage of these preventative wellness screenings. As you recall, we talked about preventative maintenance, preventative medicine, a full body scan, and then some type of a stroke risk, heart attack risk screen. For the full body scan, we have contracted with Simon Medical to do an MRI body scan, basically your torso, it's a low resolution, high resolution takes very long time. This one does not, but it picks up abnormalities or any early stages of things. The insurance will not pay for a preventative MRI scan, but it will pay for a scan when there's a diagnostic or a medical reason to do that. By doing, and just for the low fee of $600 per person to allow them to have that scan, it may pick out something that they need to look at and that they can go and get a more detailed, narrower focus scan and get it covered under medical insurance and hopefully catch something that's percolating out there that in your body that you didn't know about. Better to catch it now than wait till it becomes more intrusive and more dangerous. Other cities I've talked to have doing this and then have some really cool stories about people who did not know there was something going on. We're estimating about 50 people will take part in that, and $600 per scan. We're budgeting about $30,000 to cover that, and this comes out of the Blue Cross Blue Shield funds. We have extra money that we have a requirement to keep that 400,000 in there, but this is coming from above and beyond the 400,000. Okay, and so then so I was at Rotary talking about this with our just announcing this that we were moving this direction, and Neil said like, well, you know, Neil said from Clover Valley said, what, we can do that. You don't have to go to the valley. So we talked and we sat down. We put together a program. He went with his doctors. He's putting together a portal. We got a contract. We passed that contract, and now we're kicking that off. It's been some rocky road trying to get everything lined up and done. But what that is, what Clover Valley Regional Medical Center now offers is a series of blood tests that look for abnormalities. And Mayor, I don't know what that is. The blood test that the Deputy Fire Chief was talking about.
Yeah, it's a cardiac draw on it. I don't know the exact name.
But it's the one that shows that there's a heart problem.
Yes.
And then we do ultrasounds of the veins, look for flow and blockage. I'm not a doctor and I don't pretend to be one. And then, but the most important thing is the ability to receive a CTA scan, which is a CT scan is kind of like an MRI, but a CT on the heart is very important to diagnosing blockage and I don't know what, but that's, all I know is that I told my personal doctor that I was available to get one of these. He's like, well, you don't have to do the stress test, just get that and show me, and that'll tell me everything I need to know. So it's very good diagnostic, and we're getting that for, again, a price of $600 per, along with the ultrasound and the blood test. But most importantly, it's a follow-up visit. It's not in the valley, it's here. And then after they get the results, they invite you in and to sit with a doctor or what is it called, the nurse practitioners or the PAs, and they'll go through the test with you and say what's good, say what's bad. Now the other thing that we had is discussion we had is about age. If you're 20, you probably don't need a CT scan. The CT scan does deliver a minor or a small dose of radiation. And we're like, well, how do we break this off? Because about 40 is where you might need to do this, but you may have a history of heart disease or something. And so we let the employee sign up for whatever they choose to sign up for. If they are 22 and they signed up for a CT scan, the medical professionals at Clover Valley will talk to them about the pros and cons, the risk versus the reward of that, and take care of that. The second thing is that they'll do a regular CT scan and look for the calcium score. And if the calcium score is high, then they'll go to a CTA, again, trying to manage the dosage of radiation, because you don't want to go the full-blown CTA if there's really no hint that they're going to find anything. So these are the details that have taken so long to get worked out, along with some billing and everything that you face at home, talking to your doctors. We're facing the same thing. Pam has been taking care of this, she's doing a wonderful job. But we're looking at, again, about 45 people participating, $600 per screen, and then we'll be budgeting about 27,000 in healthcare dollars. And if we need more, we will go and make this available. We'll come back and do that. But it's been very positive response, but we're still trying to get our first person successfully scanned. We hope to have that done in the next couple of weeks. I think everybody's putting together this process because it's kind of new to everybody. So,
But if they do find positive readings, either cardiac or stroke readings, that's only a test. They don't cover it any further. Then we go into our insurance to follow up any
the follow-up,
findings.
yeah.
Then it has to kick in our insurance.
So then, let's say that I get the CT scan, I get my results. They're gonna put a portal so I can have that and log in and pull that down, show my doctor, and he says, "Oh, we got to look at this." And now there's a medical reason for the insurance to kick in, and it's covered through your normal insurance.
Yeah, you might have to go to your primary care or something, however.
Yeah, depending. I think we have PPO. I don't think we have to get a referral.
HMO.
I don't think you do on a PPO.
The HMO, you do.
I think so. On some of them.
Sometimes
Some
they
you
go
do.
back and forth. Anyways,
Yeah, some of them you do.
We do not want to talk about
What, HMO?
getting referrals and dealing with doctor offices. Not a fun topic.
Any questions? Anybody have any questions online or?
No, I don't have any questions. It all sounds really good.
Okay. Right now we have current coverages with, for helicopter, air evacuation coverage. We have a contract with PHI, and we're looking to renew that PHI. They've given us the utilization results that they have flown 25 residents out on medical air evacuation, and also 2 of our employees, 18,000 to cover the 7,000 plus people in Globe, 6,000 to cover employees. Very good deal. We feel it's going well and worth it. But on the Banner, which is the backup to that, it's a little bit more expensive, and we're having a hard time nailing down numbers and whether the utilization, they are the number 2. And so right now, I would like to recommend that council approve we putting this into the budget, the PHI, and let's hold off on Banner until we can get some more information. We just got a bunch of communication the past 2 days, but we haven't been able to get that ready and really dissect what they're providing with us.
They haven't given you the answers that we're looking for, have they?
They have given us some additional information. I know that when we talked about this before, it was in their contract that they share utilization numbers. They were a flat no, and now we're starting to see some information. We're working through that, but the recommendation from the council work group is that we lock in and say we're going forward with the helicopter services for PHI and do more research, get more information
Okay, yeah,
on
that's what we
Banner.
discussed, okay.
Yeah, it was. And
Yeah,
so,
Just a question, wouldn't it make more sense to include it in the move forward and then take it out? Or is it gonna be more difficult to put it in if you don't recommend putting it in?
the,
They don't wanna share the information with us.
Well, there's been some information shared. There's some issues with third-party billing,
No.
third-party administration and stuff, yes.
no, we can tackle this at the next budget meeting, but before tentative. And this will come back up on the table again, when we talk about the budget in general and where we're at. So we can hold that thought and bake it back in if we need to. But right now, for going forward, I just would like to, I think we had, when we made the decision to not present it with the group, that was before we got the information that we got yesterday and today, and I didn't want to change it up from what we had talked about.
So they have provided some information then?
They have.
Okay. Probably not all that we want though.
Well, we just need to evaluate. I don't wanna judge it, I don't wanna talk about it, I think we just need some time to see what has been provided and make an assessment.
Okay.
Make sure there's a benefit there, yeah, you know, we gotta make sure of that.
Okay.
So we're also continuing with our gym reimbursement. We did talk about increasing that to $40 per month for what we're calling fitness center activities. There's a discussion about CrossFit and some other programs that they offer. And
Go ahead.
okay, so I think we do have the money that I think we can go up to 40. You know, things are more expensive now. Memberships may be less. If their membership's less than 40, they can take and use that towards an activity or something like that. I know CrossFit is over $100, but I think that was a little bit too steep a hill to climb, and then the equity on that. And so we're doing that. We're also are providing free family pool passes for employees. We are not just waiving the fees, but we are paying ourselves, so we don't throw the pool budget off. We are moving money from this health and wellness money to the pool, and if people choose to buy that. And then we've also, employees have talked about doing an annual fitness challenge program, kind of a weigh-in type thing or competition to the biggest loser or something like that. And so we got some money for that. I think, what did we come up with? The balance in that was 38, 40. Yeah. So we're at about 38. Okay, I thought Mayor, we do have 38,000 in there. I think we're for gym, we're putting away we did 5 before. We'll probably put about 10 before, and then another 15 for the other activities. So I think we have the budget capacity out of that special fund at 38,000.
And that's the fund that we get from Blue Cross Blue Shield
And it's
for
restricted.
wellness? Okay.
It's restricted only to things that benefit the employees.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So, all right. Then, you got the next slide? Yep. Just some priorities on the council budget. As we went through and are doing our budget meetings, looking at council, we intend to put the 250 in the budget this year for the bed tax organizations. That'll be bed tax funds. We have a cap in place, and so it's easy, we know how much. And if we don't get that, now just to be clear, if we only collect 240,000, we split that amount. It's up to, not at.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see where the numbers come out. But it's easy, it's money in, it's money out. We just budget at 250, and we budget the revenue at that. It works out. We still want to participate in Copper Mountain Transit. I think, did I name that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's the 73,000. They have not done the switch over to the new oversight structure where they're going to centralize that with the county. So we'll continue that. Federal lobbyists for Bob Holmes and Anna. Yeah, that's we're keeping that at 60,000. Money well spent gets us a lot of money, millions of dollars it pays off. So it's money well spent for the year. Gila Proud, which is the US 60 cleanup, we need to put 10,000 aside for that, and that helps for the cleaning of US 60 through town. It's something that is easier. We are still not fully staffed in Public Works, and we never really have been able to do a good job at that, having a dedicated crew to do cleanup through the city. Very beneficial. I think it goes further than the city, right, Mayor?
Yes, it does, and 10,000 is only a small portion of it.
Yeah.
But the contract's $136,000 a year.
Yeah.
And the county contributes the highest at 50,000. We got the mines that contribute. We have the hospital that contributes $20,000, Freeport 20,000. So we're the 10,000 is very little for the full contract, but that guarantees that Allegiance is on the highway every week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Twice a week cleaning it, and it's made a difference on the quarter.
Oh, yeah,
I
they do,
agree.
when we first started cleaning our mile,
Yeah.
We were doing like 8 bags.
Yeah, you had a
and
bad
now it's
area.
down to a bag
You
and
need
a
to clean
half,
yours
2
more
bags.
often, yeah. We had the other side, so.
Yeah.
And then, no, it's been, once they have it, started and they keep keep it going, it's very easy to, just keep the maintenance of that cleaning.
Yeah,
So,
helps.
oh no, we're real, a good investment for us to be paying less than 10%. That's pretty good.
Yep.
So, and then travel for council, we have AZ League, which is actually coming up in the fall. We budget that, so 7 council members going. DC, we're doing, sending 3 now. Not doing the NLC, specifically the Congress, the one in DC, or the national, annual, but pretty much as requested. I think that, some council members do like to participate in that, not everybody does. But I think if somebody wants to go to one or the other, or NARAL, or any of those, we put some money aside for individual council members to travel, and participate in NLC. We have not become a member yet, but it doesn't seem to matter. Shelley, we don't pay the membership fee, but it doesn't cost us any more money, and everybody can participate, so we've been kind of just like going with that.
NLC is National League of Cities?
Yes.
National League of Cities, like Arizona League of Cities, and they're all subgroups of that.
Yeah.
But
I like the Arizona League, I like that one.
so, and then there was a council member to my right had brought up the idea of the $600 clothing allowance.
You know, I was just joking with you, I mean, I was surprised you put it in there, I mean, it's no big deal, I mean, I don't mind paying my bills.
We have been purchasing branded clothing for council and everything like that. We've been using out of community, what's it? Community action funds, and we thought it'd just be helpful to have a dedicated fund for each council member if they wanted to do shirts or hats or jackets or coats or whatever. It would be their discretion, but we would support that. And it doesn't mean that it has to be something that is branded. If it's something that you wear as part of your duties, I think there's not a strict code or anything like that. We're not requiring steel-toed wingtips or anything.
No, I would like to get some more shirts, but, you know, I didn't have a problem paying for them.
Well,
We got an allowance, I mean,
you
if
know,
we can afford it.
if your high rate of salary at about 37 cents an hour,
Even that.
I always feel guilty about it, you know,
yeah,
like I said.
I think it's only fair. I think it's only fair that you, we take a little bit of money and we invest in our city council and allow you to,
You know,
be professional.
the mayor has a lot of different colored shirts, and I was always thinking, you know, I need to do that.
Yep.
You know, I can pay for my own, I don't.
Well, it's you may want so many of them.
And we have jacket season too, so we gotta,
Yeah.
we wear jackets, so.
Yeah, I did buy me another jacket here recently.
I never had.
What did I
I'll
hear
have to
about?
look at that.
Okay.
No, not the one that you heard of.
Okay.
The first one I bought was, I can't believe I spent that much for it.
And then the last one, the nonprofit grant program, Mayor, I can't remember if we wanted to go 10,000. This is kind of on the bubble. This did not happen this year, but I think, Mayor, we talked about wanting to keep that in there.
And usually it's 15,000.
Yeah, we done 15. Do you want? I was wondering if you wanted to do 10 or 15. I couldn't remember if we had decided to lower that or not at the meeting.
Well, I think we had a discussion too, because it's really interesting about that possible future of a youth, some kind of youth club downtown and a nonprofit, and that, you know, that's vital. We need to really be pushing for a youth club in our downtown area.
Okay.
And it's a possibility. There's some movement on it.
Yeah, I heard recently.
It'd be nice to have one.
Yeah, it would be.
So,
We can
and
afford it, you know, I mean,
What's
I think, I mean, if we can afford to fund nonprofit, I think it's
15.
good for the city
Well,
to do that.
I've not seen the final budget numbers, so I can't answer that, whether we can afford it, but if Mayor, your preference is 10 or 15, or to council?
I think if we can keep it at that, if we have to cut it later or something, I mean, we don't know what the numbers are.
Okay, Okay. We'll put it at 15 and see if we need to cut it later.
All right.
Okay. And to, Mr. Mayor, anybody have any questions on anything on this slide? Because this is your slide.
Now, anything over the 250 on the bed tax, people, comes back to the city, right?
Goes back to the city.
And they understand that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Okay. No, that's good.
Okay.
Freddie, Jesse, any comments, questions?
I don't have any, as you know, I'm part of the committee, so this is, something I've already seen and I've made my comments, so. Thank you.
All right, and then last slide. So this is well, not second to last slide, but this is the property tax. Okay, and I'm gonna boil this down to really simple. We have made a commitment that with the new sales tax that the city has has put in place a couple of years ago, we would not touch property tax, and we would not raise the levy amount. So the levy is based on the valuation of properties and the rate that equals the levy that we collect. And so we are sticking with that in the fact that you can see that on the maximum tax rate, let's see here, if you go to the very bottom, the proposed primary property tax levy, we are proposing we go down from 1.22 to 1.18, which demonstrates that we're lowering the levy. I'm sorry, we're lowering the property rate because of higher valuations, and to maintain the levy at the same. We could have gone a little bit higher, but we would have broken through the truth in taxation and had to do a series of meetings. I think we're looking past about $15,000 that probably would not the communication, the messaging on trying to recapture that, it would appear, even though we're lowering the rate, that we're taking on more taxes. I think just for its simplicity, you always want to try to avoid the series of public hearings and notifications that truth and taxation will bring on, and so that's why we're adjusting that number down, and that will work out. We did pick up some additional new construction, so we're getting that money.
Mr. Mayor, that was gonna be my next question. How are the other tax revenue streams doing this year?
They've been performing very well. I don't want to go on record with saying
No,
that.
I understand that. I'm just looking for a general consensus. The revenue streams the past 3 or 4 years have been on the up and up.
What's the most important thing to me, or to us as a city manager, is we are beating what we budgeted. The rates of sales tax collection is higher than what we predicted, and that is always a good thing.
And then the other caveat and question is, how are our friends at the state legislature doing and the governor's office on preparing this year's budget? I hate to ask that question because
they are in hunker down mode. They've sent everybody on a spring break, and what's going to happen is most of them left. They're hunkering down. They're going to come back in session. They're going to roll out the burbs, the budget authorizations, and they'll post them for 24 hours. They'll go into an all-night session. They'll lock the doors so no one can come in and report about it. They'll pass a budget and they'll go home, do sine die, and just end the session. And you're stuck with it before anybody can say a word about it.
I want to add that as a caveat then to our discussions, because every time they do that, and I start reading in state papers about the lack of revenue coming into the state's coffers, I start to worry. And so that's a caveat I have to point out.
We
Subject
are
to what they're doing.
And Mr. Mayor, members of council, to Councilman Gonzalez's point, they're not messing with state shared revenues. and there's no sign of anything on food tax. They've already taken away, lease, we don't have any hot taxing that are gonna impact us directly financially, although, no one's safe when they're in session.
Yes,
But,
and your comment to us the other day that things have died on the operating table.
Yeah,
I get that.
there is no way that's coming back. Now, doesn't mean that another year from now,
I was just gonna say that, January 1st is a new ballgame, so,
they, they're pretty stubborn down there.
well,
And there's one person that really, really wants to impose that, so he tries every which way.
yeah.
But,
As usual, you have another battle on your hands, Mr. Mayor, so.
that one is that's a backbreaker. If we were to lose the food tax war, it would be very, very devastating.
Well, I'm happy our revenue streams are on the up and up and have not deviated from that. And then I get asked all the time about the property tax rates, and I get asked all the time about how we're doing in the other revenue streams, and so it's been a consistent message.
Yeah, and we've been, like I say, it's something that's, we don't wanna jinx it or anything like that, but it's up and down because how they collect, but overall, a year pattern, and we are outperforming what we budgeted. But we'll have a lot more information. This is the opening part of the budget. On the 28th, we'll have a lot more information about revenue projections, fund balance, contingencies. That'll be the important conversation that the council will need to know.
I just want to say one more thing. I want to give kudos to our subcommittee that dealt with the bed tax. That's been a good journey and a fruitful journey.
Yeah.
Mike and the mayor and the rest of them have been very good about getting us to that point. And I think that it's equitable, and I do think we need to be sure that the committees do present to us at convenient times throughout the year. Sometimes it seems like the cobwebs are there after the first of the year, and we had to scramble again to do some paperwork on my subcommittee or my committee.
Yeah.
And I need to stay on top of them to be sure that it gets done.
Well, I think, and thank you for the comments, and I know council did a lot of work on that. And people showed up for meetings and took notes. They gave us feedback. I think the biggest takeaway though is what Shelley and I have learned is for us to utilize the council liaisons for information and communication. They're more, you can gain their attention and their, feedback much easier than I think we are able to do.
Thank you for saying that. That's a compliment to the mayor. When he calls, I jump, and the last time this happened, I had to jump. And I didn't mind doing that.
Yeah.
The point was we're the connection point, and there's the liaison responsibility. So thank you for that, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
All right, and the last slide.
Just one question, and just, do we find out, does this reflect the property tax of Hill Street School?
We believe it does not.
It does not, so we'll see an increase with Hill Street.
We'll get something out of
Okay.
there.
Okay,
It's roughly the same amount of construction we had last year, so
Okay.
we will have a bump. So the last slide just represents, I stole this straight from your email. So, posting dates for adoption of the final budget. We will, June 10th will be the adoption of the tentative budget. On the 18th, we will post on the website within the 7 days of adoption as required by law. On June 19th and 26th, in 2020, this year, we'll post in the Silver Belt for 2 consecutive weeks, including the public hearing notice for the July 8th final budget adoption. And because of the requirement that you have a 2-week posting, and the posting starts on, you have to submit it on the Wednesday, you need 3 weeks to post for 2 weeks. So we need to have at least 3 weeks between the meeting. And so we're kicking over while we're doing tentative budget on the 10th, we're kicking the final budget adoption to July 8th. And then, again, posting on the website within the 7 days of that. There's no problem with final adoption into the new budget cycle. It is adoption of the tentative before the end of the fiscal year. That is the requirement. If you have your tentative in place, you can continue to spend as you go into July 1. So, and then finally, we will have July 22nd, adopt property tax levy, which will show that the levy will be adopted, the rate will go down, and this is as we had planned and promised and committed to council. So then I get to the question slide.
Any questions?
I have none, Mayor.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. So I will tell you that we are doing meetings, multiple days a week, being budget meetings next 2 weeks. We have our budget team participating in pretty much everything as we work on our transitions and learning the process. And there's lots more of meetings to come as we go through this, but it's gone very well. It's very inclusive. We've gotten all the department meetings done. That's always the big thing. And then working with Tina, who's been here and zooming in, and she couldn't Zoom tonight. She had an event, and we let her off the hook on that. Although she's probably home by now. And then still Pat Walker I have a Zoom tomorrow of 2 hours with Pat Walker helping us with budget, and then Dennis Osich is still getting the audits ready, and we will be doing presenting the 2023 audit on the 28th. Okay, so we're really excited about that, and then that allows us to start the 24 audit, and we're nearly caught up. Okay, so Mr. Mayor, members of council, that concludes our budget presentation, and we have feedback. We'll make those adjustments.
Okay, I don't think we have any.
Yep. So then, yep, we're done for that one. Well, not done.
We have to keep our next agenda smaller.
What's that?
Our next agenda smaller.
We thought it was small.
Okay, item G, consideration to ratify the approval of the intergovernmental agreement IGA 20250161 with Gila County to employ two summer youth with the City of Globe through 2025 Summer Youth Program, and request to waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion rule. Shelley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is, to start our annual, it's the county annual contract with the Gila County for, to employ two interns through the summer. This year staff requested two students that would be employed at Public Works and Gila County. And this is 100% covered by Gila County. The program would start the beginning of June and run through the middle of July. So we're asking for ratification. This is a busy time of year for Gila County. They're putting all their new contracts into place for the new fiscal year. And so, Mr. Mayor, we did talk with you and we did submit that request to Gila County. This is ratification to approve this contract.
Okay. Questions, comments, or motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to ratify the approval of this IGA and to request waive section 2-4-10A prior discussion.
Second.
Motion and second for approval of item 5G. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion passed.
Aye.
It's a good program. It's a good
Oh,
program.
yeah. Action items, none? Any late agenda items from anybody? Or no, we don't have any. I'm sorry, that's future I asked.
No, we looped those in, so we did have two, but we took care of those already.
Second call to the public. Anybody still watching, Daniel? Huh? Wow. Yeah, okay.
You don't count.
You're one of the 12 then.
Yeah. All right. No second call to the public. No one's running for the podium. No one on the phone.
Okay.
So I think we're good.
Scheduling the meetings?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, just a reminder that our next meeting will be on Wednesday, May 28th.
Yes.
That the like say, Monday is the Memorial Day, and so it gives us a day to load up the agenda on Tuesday, so Wednesday the 28th.
You bet.
It'll be primarily budget.
Okay,
Okay.
It's May 28th.
yes, Wednesday instead of Tuesday.
Wednesday.
Future agenda items?
Nothing that.
Can we, I just have, real quickly, because this is a question that comes up when people address or ask about citations and code enforcement. Can we have an update on the Silver King building and the new fire station?
Wait, okay.
'Cause they,
Wait, say it
an
on-
update on Silver King, the Silver King, and an update on the new fire station. When people talk to me or ask questions about citations and violations, and then they talk about our city having two buildings that, so can we get an update?
Yes.
Okay.
With the progress,
Yeah.
You don't want progress, you want why.
Yeah, what the delay is, why, do we anticipate when we're gonna tear those down and?
Yeah, well, and Silver King was torpedoed by the EPA, which never got the money. What, you want? Okay, but you've got 30 seconds.
Okay,
But you can just wrap that up into an update whenever, a future agenda item, right? We don't have to get into that right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
I agree.
okay,
Okay, that's why I brought it up, future agenda.
okay. So update on tearing those two buildings down and why they got it.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion made?
Second.
We have motion second for adjournment. All those in favor say aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Thank you.